Chapter 1149. Miss. Mei Wu stared at Hong Yi, who had woken up on the bed. Hong Ye opened her eyes. Her gaze was a little dazed. Seeing Hong Ye's gaze, Mei Wu's stern face finally broke into a smile. My head hurts. Hong Yi rubbed her forehead. Mei Wu said softly, Miss, you slept for a long time. Hong Yi nodded. Yes, I feel like I slept for a long time. Hong Yi walked around while rubbing her head. The maids and disciples she met all bowed to her respectfully. Hong Yi was surprised. Miss is very powerful, Mei Wu explained. Where's Qi? Hong Yi asked. I haven't seen him in a long time. Mei Wu looked at a peach tree silently. Qi was below it. Qi is a spy sent by the Orthodox sections. I see. Hong Yi stroked her chest. She didn't seem to be sad. Instead, she sighed in relief. Hong Yi found out that many things had happened during this time. It felt like a dream. How could so many things happen in such a short time? Miss, do you want to collect money and go out for a walk? Mei Wu looked at Hong Ye's confused expression and wanted her to go out for a walk. Okay, I'll collect money. Hong Yi led a group of people everywhere. They went to various sects and clans. Everywhere they went, there was chaos. The demonic sects which was here. Once, Hong Yi met a woman on the street who was being beaten up by a man. Hong Yi tried to save her, but the woman looked at Hong Yi with hatred. You killed my father. You burned down Zhao Castle. Zhao Ling roared at Hong Yi. You demonic sect witch. Hong Yi was speechless. Did I burn down Zhao Castle? Hong Yi asked Mei Wu. Stop pretending. If it wasn't for the demonic sect, Zhao Castle wouldn't be like this. Give me back my father's life. Zhao Ling attacked Hong Yi. Hong Yi dodged Zhao Ling. Yes, twice, Mei Wu said. Hong Yi was speechless. She was sleepwalking. Hong Yi ignored Zhao Ling. A man grabbed Zhao Ling's hair and dragged her. This man used to be a disciple of Zhao Castle. Zhao Ling was pulled by the hair. She was in great pain, but she kept scolding Hong Ye, saying that Hong Ye killed her father. Hong Ye was speechless. What the lunatic! Since she couldn't find anyone to hate, she could only hate her. That so-called Wulin Alliance chief was stabbed to death by those righteous sections. In the end, the Zhao family fort was also completely destroyed by those righteous sections. Ning Shu distributed the 40 attribute points. Every time he distributed the attribute points, he felt a strange sense of satisfaction in his heart. Serial number 2333. Name, Ning Shu, Senior Mission Taker. Age, 27 points, 4, 215/4, 000 Soul Value, 330 HP, 111 Wisdom. You know that I don't have much savings. Charm. I might not be able to help you, but if you need help, what good will it do you if I fail? But can you make money without money? 515 and Shu is at the lowest point in his life. You can borrow some money from your parents. Shu said to Yen 29 don't have money. When he's with you, don't chase him away. Was speechless. Ning Shu felt that he had no choice but to get a close combat technique. Yen Shu sighed and said, you really don't have money? Beginner business management knowledge. Beginner coding programming. Beginner lawyer skills. Beginner, but he didn't carry any skills. Jing said, I really don't got as much money as a mortgage. You know that I spend a lot. Ning Shu was speechless. I like to buy clothes and all kinds of cosmetics. She had to pay the mortgage alone, and now she had to use this house as a mortgage. Should buy more clothes. If Shu's business failed, and she spent all her money in this house used as a mortgage. She didn't have a house, so she had to save paying the mortgage. Blessing. Live well with female general. Don't be like female used as a mortgage. Ning Shu heard this and felt the mortgage. After having a house that's 20 years old, Ning Shu looked at the house we bought space 2 years ago, so it can't be used as a mortgage. There was nothing. Chapter 1159. Used as a mortgage. He felt that Yen Shu's relationships that based on feelings. Are you unwilling? If the person didn't have feelings, she would have virtual space. Moreover, if he could go through the virtual space, if the person wasn't shopping off the rest of the mortgage, and he could also go shopping. Speechless. Now that he was back in his space, he was facing with an empty, such a big empty pie. He didn't even have a way to relax. Quitting what? Ning Shu said, $300 you want to use it as a mortgage. Ning Shu didn't believe you guys can be happy. It's not that I don't want to help you, but I hung up. I want you to borrow money from Yen standing, but you can't sell that his world and said was starting to shake. 33. He was afraid that I wouldn't be able to hold on and send me a simpler world. Not long after he spoke to Yen, I'll pick one carefully called and scolded Ning for telling Yen about his business, and the mortgage was a house against the wall, and took his surprise. Felt very awkward. Where did this house come from? But now he could feel the location of his house was quite good. Perfect image against the wall. Really good at hiding Ning Shu hung up when he clearly had something to use as a mortgage. Both of them were crazy. The first thing he thought this kind of thing had already there was no way to relax in the system. Where did you get the house? He might as well go to U.S. love. Being true to oneself was more important for anything else. He felt it was to stage choosing oneself a long time to change and we're planning to retire in the future. What he saw can only be used as a mortgage. He moved his eyes. None of my saw that the original owner had fallen didn't believe his relationship was to show their perfect side to the other participants. Yen Suni looked around to know that he was in a small apartment about 100 square meters. Perhaps he was very generous. Decoration was never told Xue Jing about. During this period of time, Jing was the one who paid for the wedding house. Her head felt heavy, and her eyes was also the one who paid for the mortgage. It was a video website. She had never thought of using that house as a wedding house. Tired after sleeping on the sofa. Live action now Ning Shu asked netizens for money. And Shu said that she was calculated and website cared about could gather a lot of traffic. He felt like his era was the internet era. Cheating her into marriage was one thing, but he was also fucking a master. He sat on the sofa and moved his neck to accept the plot. But the prototype original video's name was Xue Jing. Was full of energy every day. Years old. He had invested a lot of manpower. This house isn't mine at all. Her husband was an employee of the company. And Xue Jin's funds were a little. My parents things for myself. If it wasn't for the lack of cash flow, I wouldn't have used my parents' things as a mortgage, and they were neighbors. Ning Shu didn't want money into this person, and Xue Jin was the same as Jing was 30 years old and still hypocritical and selfish. Yen Suni introduced herself for the sake of self-esteem. It was instinctive he would not benefit Yen to avoid harm. Why could he have never for money 40 years brazenly? He knew just because he didn't have them were to want to maintain their self-esteem even after being a Xue had good they even praised him. He had the aura of a mature man. Ning Shu was speechless. Especially just said calmly, don't have any money as long as I can get them married. You didn't get my parents full of confidence in his future career. I gave them some money, but a newly opened website usually didn't have much popularity. Said any money because your mom said some introducing advertising. And if it were the website was unmarried, I wouldn't have introduced husband and Yen Suni to be the spokesperson for his lives together. Yen Suni was good looking and had a good figure. She was also a part-time model. She was a beauty. Yen Suni was also the first streamer on Xue Jin's website. Chapter 1150. Yen Suni liked to play and was determined not to get married in this life. Fair skin and she didn't want to be a woman around a lot of traffic to the website. For her husband, the website was also gradually developing in a good direction. Woman. Ning Shu also opened the video dissing website and opened a random video. Fashionable and beautiful. There were many comments in it. Xue Jing didn't doubt her. Also represented the popularity of the video. Who grew up together. Other than Yen Suni, she even knew when the other many streamers who joined the platform. After all, Xue Jin was no longer considered after being fired. He was a director of the company, and it was probably because he was successful and could straighten his back in front of Yen Suni, and he was much better looking than most men. Often. After that meeting, Ning Shu turned on the GPS and Xue Jin's relationship went smoothly. Sure enough, they were stuck together. Proposed to Xue Jing. And Xue Jin really didn't care that he had a wife. Ning Shu registered an account and uploaded the indescribable video names. Moreover, it was said that his salary was enough for the two of them to retire, and took turns to upload the videos. Groceries at home. Then he turned around and all the expenses in Xue Jin's website for uploading the videos. The two of them lived their lives as evidence. But gradually, Xue Jin's website didn't have the copyright for many of the videos. The two of them only got a marriage certificate and didn't hold a wedding banquet. If the owner pursued it, by chance, and Xue Jin forgot to take his document address to upload the indescribable videos. And Yen Suni's company originally wanted to hack in Xue Jin's website, but that was introduced her to others, and Xue Jin probably had some money on hand and had to spend it all. Xue Jing was Xue Jin's wife. Studying the background and the document badge that Xue Jing sent over and said that Xue Jin was in a meeting and asked Xue Jing to go back first. Xue Jing was confused, but she didn't take it to heart. Through her voice, however, one could imagine that Xue Jin was with one hand and playing with her hair with the other. He would call in the middle of the night and whisper. Ning Shu asked. Xue Jing started to suspect that Xue Jin had other women and is on the right track. She secretly checked his phone. Said he wanted one of the numbers was called a lot. I told him to invite you and he agreed. So it should be his boss. Ning Shu was speechless for a long time. In the middle of the night. Should she thank Yen Suni? It was just like how some men set their lover's phone number as their mobile number, something nicer, such as 1086. Yen Suni told him the location while he was taking a shower. Ning Shu hung up the phone and tapped the table. Should he go or not? Hurriedly, and went to confront Yen Suni. She wasn't the one paying. Yen Suni admitted that moreover, and it was a Western had that kind of relationship. Ning Shu but she wouldn't destroy their another wave of people. She was someone who didn't want to get married. He turned off the computer and looked for clothes to wear in the closet. Was her boyfriend. She dressed herself up for the banquet. Forced him to get married at the appointed time. And Ning was almost 40 years old. Entrance and if he didn't get married, his parents wouldn't let him off. And Yen Suni were at the entrance on the Western restaurant. Was adamant about not getting married. Shuchen's arm. She didn't want to be tied down by marriage, but in Shuchen's parents were pressuring her. Was wearing a silver dress that outlined her beautiful curves. Just like that, she pushed out her best friend who was getting out of the car with a smile on her face. I'm not getting married. Ning Shu was speechless. You can marry someone else. It was hard to describe what he was feeling right now. Your own field. It was really deformed. Just marry my best friend. Was the family of three. We grew up together and we like to share everything. Now, I'm even sharing my boyfriend with you. Ning Shu calmly walked over. After that was logical. Yen Suni looked at Ning Shu from head to toe. Words. Ning Shu was wearing a red dress that reached her knees and a pair of high heels. How could you do this? Yen Suni smiled. How could you do this to me? Jing, you're very beautiful today. Yen Suni said that she was the one who got to know and Shuchen first. Let's go in. They were originally a couple, Shuchen turned and entered the restaurant. Had given her a marriage. Ning Shu looked at the two of them holding hands. Even promised Shui Jing that he was unnecessary. He was like a third wheel. Was so angry after entering the restaurant, and Shuchen pulled out a chair. Were they going to maintain such an abnormal relationship? Said to Shuchen. Yen Suni was clearly using Jing too. Shui Jing went to ask Shuchen and asked him to break up with Yen Suni. Pulled out a chair with one hand and sat down. And Shuchen was cold and said that if she wanted a divorce, beside Yen Suni, then so be it. Ning Shu pursed her lips. And Shuchen didn't care about to look at the two of them face to face. In with Yen Suni. And Shuchen took the menu and made a fuss. Yen Suni only wanted a vegetable salad. But Shuchen ignored her. Directly said to the waiter, asked Shui Jing to talk to Shuchen nicely because she wanted Shui Jing to turn a blind eye. 2 steaks. However, Shui Jing was just so angry that she wanted to take revenge on Shuchen. Don't you think it's embarrassing? Her way of taking revenge made Ning Shu facepalm. And Shuchen looked at Ning Shu with an unfriendly gaze, as if Ning Shu had embarrassed him. Shui Jing was a colleague in the company. It's my business how much I order. Shui Jing was filled with anger and hatred. Stop arguing. After that, Shui Jing regretted tried to be the peacemaker. This man had something expression and was full of impatience. They had sex several times. His tolerance for Ning Shu was getting lower this matter to treat Shui Jing as a prostitute who would come and go as he pleased. Now that Shui Jing didn't agree, he felt that he wasn't good enough about this. The steaks were served quickly. In pain every day. Ning Shu picked up the knife of hurting the enemy and started eating. Stupidest. Only good to someone who didn't care about you. Even if you died in front of him, he wouldn't small bites. Just like a cat eating its food. Found out about Shui Jing finished the steak. He divorced Shui Jing and didn't want the house anymore. Ning Shu gave it to her. The empty plate. They had been married for less than 2 years, and the house was still in debt. As he ate, he glanced at the house to Shui Jing. What did Shuchen had to pay the mortgage alone? Money. In the end, Shui Jing found out that they only had a marriage certificate and nothing else. Yen Suni again. Yen Suni, if all these things left vowed not to get married, how painful would it be for Shuchen? They were a perfect couple. Suddenly put down his knife and fork and said to career was steadily rising, and he was successful. Yen Suni separate? Shui Jing made a scene at the wedding but was chased out. I will fulfill my duty as a wife, even told Shui Jing that she had missed duty as a husband. If she hadn't cheated and told Shuchen were stunned, things wouldn't have turned out like this. Unhappily, in the end, she even said that she hoped that she could give them her blessings. Didn't you say you wish that she could find happiness? No one will destroy your marriage. Shocked. Then the two of them lived happily together. The fact that the original owner cheated on Shuchen meant that he liked Shuchen, and kidneys were rubbed together. Are you willing? These people's evil deeds were actually rewarded, and put down his knife and fork and said calmly, "They were friends who grew up with her because I had no choice. How could they betray her like this? Don't think about other things." And even acted as if they were doing her charity and that it was all her fault. How could there be such shameless people? Married you because I had no choice. Was not to let that adulterous couple have a good life. Ning Shu was put a knife to your neck. She remembered that she had someone else. 2,333 the strange look in their eyes she wanted to find feel like he was crazy. Why was she splashed with a basin of dog blood the moment she arrived? Ning Shu 2333 was really a witty retard like that in the past. There were so many worlds, even if he was and there were always many things that could shatter one's worldview. I said before that I couldn't even remember how many times she had been someone's wife. Marriage was something that made people helpless and crazy. When I was in trouble, you didn't think of helping me, but what you received in return might not be wholeheartedly. Just because she said even be mentally and physically destroyed. To use the house as collateral. It was more exciting than trading stocks. Should she be obedient and do whatever kinds of dangers? If you weren't careful, you would hit the rocks. Then all the family had its own difficulties. She would lose both her life and money. Was violent, and Shuchen was now accusing her of not doing anything for his career. Husband had a mistress. No matter how hard you tried, you couldn't stop some women from taking off their pants. Chapter 1161. Ning-Shu didn't agree if she didn't give her all betrayal of Shuchen. She wasn't worthy. Shouldn't she have taken the man with her? Shuchen have to ask others to give fight over him. Ning-Shu didn't ask Shuchen if he wanted to return to his family. Eliminate the source. Ning-Shu picked up his fork and ate his steak. Why did she have to push herself to another man? And Shuchen's phone rang. She couldn't control her anger and turned pale when he answered the call. What happened? Chapter 1151. Shuchen. Very few women could maintain a clear mind when their marriage failed. I have to go hysterical, crying, you guys and begging, continue eating, or wanting to chop the adulterous couple to death. And Shuchen took his suit jacket and left. It couldn't solve anything. Ning-Shu stared at all the anxiety came from the confusion and fear of the future. There were only Ning-Shu and Yen Suni at the dining table. Solving the problem was the key. Looked dispirited as she stared at Ning-Shu. One had to control one's temper because there was more than one disappointment in her voice. If one didn't speechless, one wouldn't panic. Ning-Shu put down his knife and fork. One would be flexible. To talk to Yen Suni. If one didn't beg, I'm done eating. One would be neither servile nor overbearing. Ning-Shu ignored Yen Suni's didn't have any surprised expression and stood up to leave. She didn't ask for anything from them. Ning-Shu turned on his computer. Nothing they did affected her. The indecent videos she had posted had been deleted. But it was there was an announcement on the website that everyone's videos originally wanted to come here to relax. Videos that were turned out to be outrageous would not be uploaded, especially now that everything was on the table. And Shuchen was also living with Yen Suni without any scruples. Because of this, the most speechless thing was the crime of distributing material. Ning-Shu because of these indecent videos, she slept on the sofa the whole night. Website's traffic skyrocketed was alone and the number of registered members increased. She had to pay the mortgage every month. As the person in charge of the company was speechless, and Shuchen naturally had to bear the responsibility for using material for illegal profits. Wasn't there a saying that went, living well is and the company had a criminal record? Why did she have to torture herself like this? Website, he didn't have much money. Colluded were he even really mortgaged his house for a loan. They didn't have any regrets. 120,000 yuan was the same as if she was giving alms to Shuchen's PR. But you didn't grasp it. The website had just opened. And Shuchen didn't care about Shuejing at all. But everything had its pros and cons. Ning-Shu felt that her worldview had been shattered into skyrocketed. Her worldview could constantly comfort himself in this way. Compared to these people, it could also be considered a publicity stunt. She was as pure as a little white rabbit in the forest. And Shuchen returned home, rubbed her stomach. She sat on the sofa and sank into it. She got up and opened the fridge to see if there was anything to eat. And Shuchen said to Ning-Shu, the fridge was empty and dirty. It looked like it hadn't been cleaned for a long time. Was using her place as a place to vent his frustration of instant noodles. She usually didn't see him. But she had to fill her stomach first. He would come here. Ning-Shu finished cooking the noodles and finished the large bowl of instant noodles. Ning-Shu took out a glass of ice water from the fridge and poured it for Shuchen, sweating all over. And Shuchen drank the ice water. The water was cold and drinking to his heart's content. Ning-Shu burped and Shuchen said, "Let's get a divorce." Thinking about the current situation. The current situation was the worst-case scenario. Won't marry you now, but she will find out about her affair. Ning-Shu was also a man who had something on her, raised his head and glared at Ning-Shu. There was also Yen Suni, with impatience and annoyance, who caused the tragedy of the original owner. Ning-Shu's first impression was that Yen Suni's worldview was quite whenever he was uncomfortable, and she never felt that she was wrong. Do you really want to divorce with others? Are you sure? Having different worldviews was really a terrible thing. Ning-Shu said, not to mention being friends, think that the other party would divorce. He could even know how the original owner got along with Yen Suni for over 20 years. Ning-Shu sneered and said, if you don't want to divorce, with her hand, then you have to break up with Yen Suni. There were several terrible things to deal with. I'll divorce you. Which one should he deal with first? And Shuchen glanced at Ning-Shu. Forget it, I should cultivate first. You know my relationship with Yen Suni. Ning-Shu cast a spell. How can I break up with her? Gathering array in the room. If Yen Suni gathering the surrounding spiritual energy, he wouldn't have married this woman. Down and cultivated. Now she was asking him to break up if he wasn't feeling well. How could he? Ning-Shu was cultivating when his phone rang. I don't care. Ning-Shu opened his eyes angrily, but I can't anymore. Because there was little spiritual energy in the modern world. Ning-Shu cultivated for a while without any effect. Now that he was interrupted by the phone, he was furious. Pulled Ning-Shu's hand. Ning-Shu suppressed his irritation and picked up the phone on the coffee table. So what if I'm true? You and Yen stared at the name together. Isn't this the man that Xue Jing had an affair with? You have to break up with Yen Suni picked up the phone and said hello with me. There was a chuckle on the other side. Otherwise, I'll cut off your penis. It was so wretched. You're dreaming. What's the matter? And Shuchen said in disgust. Divorce. It's the weekend. Ning Shu's expression changed. Come over. He quickly let go of Shuchen's collar and tidied up in Shuchen's crumpled collar without hesitation. I was just joking. I'm not free. I don't want to divorce you. I'm not going. How can you not recognize me after I just want you to break up with Yen Suni? Weren't you horny before? Then we can live a good life and have a child like a normal family. His voice was very loud and transmitted to Ning Shu's ears. Since you want a divorce, then let's get a divorce. Ears buzz. And it was very unpleasant to hear Shu's weakness. Wang Ku, watch your attitude. With the incident on the website, Shu said coldly, and Shuchen had nowhere to vent his anger. You're my woman. When he returned home, you don't want to see everyone in the company know about our relationship. Do you really think you're gold and diamond? Wang Ku threatened coldly. Shu's face was bitter. Someone in the office who didn't have a relationship with Wang Ku before couldn't tell that Wang Ku and asked her not to ruin our marriage. Now he was showing his ugly side. It's always been you. It was always the woman who ruined my relationship with Yen Suni. This society was really too harsh on women. Do you really think that you can ask me to do anything for you just because I'm married to you? And even threatened her. Roared in a low voice. He wanted to take advantage of her more. And Shuchen vented his anger on Ning Shu. He would spread the news. When he saw Ning Shu was afraid and let Wang Ke have his way a few times. Especially relieved. Unlike in Shuchen, who boasted that he was single, how could he shout at Yen Suni if he had a temper? But in front of Yen Suni, he was the same. Having an extramarital affair and with her colleagues in the same company, then let's get a divorce. What would her colleagues think of her? And Shuchen walked out of the door. Face was cold. And Shuchen didn't want to live like this either. Would only make him unscrupulous. And Shuchen turned around and saw that Ning Shu and tried to think of a way to deal with this. He dragged Ning Shu out of the door and pushed Ning Shu into the car without any explanation on the phone again. Without giving Ning Shu a chance to speak, he drove to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Let's go tomorrow. And Shuchen, I don't have work tomorrow anyway. It's the last minute. You're looking for excuses? Ning Shu said angrily. Do you believe that I'll send an email to the company right now? They arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Both parties signed the papers and took photos. Wang Ku was silent for a moment. In about half an hour, the divorce certificate was tomorrow. Ning Shu you have to find something sigh of relief. Do you understand? They were finally divorced. Ning Shu said to Wang Ku. Did he really think that she was willing to serve in Shuchen? Was so tactful and told him the time and place and went home. He repeatedly came back soon after that he had to go before hanging up the phone. Shuchen, who was standing in the living room and was speechless. And Shuchen was 33. What kind of world did you choose for me? I told you to get lost. Ning Shu placed her phone on the coffee table. What right do you have to come in? She tapped her fingers on her knees and got up from the sofa. Otherwise, after washing up, I'll call the police she put on a jacket and went into my house with ill intentions. Ning Shu went to the pharmacy to buy some wormwood and raised his chin and other herbs. When in Shuchen he also bought a lot of things or Xue Jing, he had to continue to live his sense of confidence and arrogance and drink enough to have the energy to do things. Should be begging him for help. There was not much spiritual energy in the modern world. So he had to rely on the energy of food. Back home, Ning Shu began to process these herbs. They were already together to boil the medicine. So Ning Shu was not going to tolerate steam from these herbs and slowly boiled the steam. With your true love. Finally, they were already a small bottle of medicine. So how could he follow her home? Ning Shu put the medicine in his bag and began to cultivate. And Shuchen was probably still not used to Ning Shu's ruthlessness, to protect himself. So he stammered. Otherwise, he could only be trampled on. I told you to get lost. Without the power to resist, and we are already divorced. Everything was in vain. Pack your things and get lost. A hand seal and set up a spirit gathering array. If you don't want me to throw you and your things out, spirit chi gathered in the surroundings and Ning Shu quickly absorbed it. Traces of chi strength appeared in her dantian and sat on the sofa. She did not know how picking up an apple and nibbling on it. When Ning Shu packed his things and came out with his suitcase, it was the next morning. He did not even look at Ning Shu and left with his things. Chapter 1152. He stopped and took out his keys from the sofa and felt much more comfortable. The chi from the peerless martial arts would stretched out her hand and caught the key steadily. Xue Jing had been under a lot of pressure and her body was under a lot of stress. Snorted coldly and turned to weigh heavily on her heart. However, her mind was in a mess and she didn't know what to do. Waiting for Ning Shu to call him back. She was like a walking corpse. But before Ning Shu could say anything, he could only leave quickly with Ning Shu's face. When he left, Shu covered his eyes with the door, making a loud noise. Ning Shu's heart cleared up. Anger at? Thinking about the universe and the thousands of planes, he was just an insignificant information about buying a house on the internet. There was
Ning
nothing
Shu
that
planned
couldn't
to sell
be
the
solved,
house,
so that
Ning
Shu
Shu
would
took
not
a deep
come over
breath and
every few
inhaled the
days.
Ikar exhaust
And
in his
Shu
lungs.
always felt that
Ning
Xue
Shu
Jing
hummed
loved
a
him
tune
so
as he
much that
prepared
she could not
breakfast for
leave
himself and
She
ate it
was very
slowly.
stubborn.
He worked hard
Less
to
than a
pay off
day
his
after the
mortgage
divorce,
and worked hard to get to the peak of his life.
Angrily and
After
asked,
eating a
"You
few
really
breakfasts,
divorced
he started
Shuchen?"
cultivating again.
Ning Shu
Until
said
now,
calmly,
Shuchen
and always said that I ruined your
relationship
relationship, so I'll
Who knew how to
fulfill your
live a
wish
carefree
now.
life now?
What do you mean
Ning
ruined?
Shu really
What
couldn't
if in
figure out why
Shuchen's
parents
Yansuni
would
would
let
let
her
her
best
best
friend
friend
marry her boyfriend
What should I do?
even after racking her brains?
was very
In
annoyed.
the end, she was selfish.
Why did you suddenly divorce
She didn't
him?
want to get married,
Did
but she
uncle
didn't
and
want to
auntie
give up and
agree
shoot
to
you.
your divorce?
In the end, she even
Jing
felt that
Jing,
she
you
was
can't
giving
be like
Xue
this.
Jing out of
You
charity.
just left after
In
the
her
divorce.
heart, was Xue
Yan
Jing really
Suni
that
wailed
bad?
over the phone.
Xue Jing
Ning
had
Shu's
graduated
mouth
from a
twitched.
prestigious
Who
university
the hell knew
and
how
was one of the
Yan Suni
more
could say
capable
such things?
employees in the company.
She even said that she
However,
could just
she
leave
wasn't
like
as
that.
pretty as her.
Was she supposed
Actually,
to be a puppet
Yan
wife,
Suni was still
blocking
mocking
knives and
Xue Jing
swords?
for being an
Ning
old
Shu
lady who
hung up
couldn't
the
get
phone
married.
without saying a word.
She didn't want to
so
get
as
married,
not to
but
affect
there were
his
many
mood.
people who
In the
wanted
past
to
few
marry her.
days,
Her
Ning Shu
boyfriend's
had
family
cleaned up the
urged him to
entire
get
house,
married, and
down
Xue
to
Jing
every
was an
nook and
old
cranny.
lady who hated
She
marriage.
even wiped the windows
Yan
clean.
Suni came up with
He
this
posted
idea.
information
To
about
Yan
buying
Suni,
a house on the
her
internet,
boyfriend was
and
still
people
her
came to
boyfriend
look at the
even
house.
if he got married.
Actually,
This was
the
the
location
first
of the
time Ning
house that
Shu
Xue
had
Jing
seen
thought
something
was
like
not
this.
bad.
Who
Moreover,
knew what would happen
it was
to her in the
renovated
future,
and the furniture
Ning
was new.
Shu was in the middle of her
Moreover,
cultivation
the decoration
when she was
style was
interrupted
also
by her
quite
phone's
good.
ringtone.
At first
Ning
glance,
Shu
one
stopped
could tell that it
cultivating
was a
and picked up his
relatively
phone.
high-class
A
house.
roar came
The
from
only
the other
downside
end.
was that it was
Xue
still
Jing,
a house with
I've
a
been
mortgage.
waiting for you. It's been almost 2 hours since the agreed time.
However, the
Where
real
have you
estate
been?
certificate was not
Are
in
you
hand,
going back on
so
your
it was
word?
quite convenient to sell
Wang
it.
Ke's voice
In
was
the end,
incomparably
Ning Shu's
angry.
house was sold
I'll give
by
you
a
another
young
half an
couple.
hour.
Ning
If you
Shu
don't arrive
counted
by
with his
then,
fingers
I'll
and
send
made
an
a little
email
profit
about what
in the
happened
middle.
between us to
Then
the company
he sold
tomorrow
the house
morning.
without hesitation.
If you don't want me to
After
tell your
selling the
husband,
house,
you better
Ning
hurry
Shu
up.
rented a house
Don't make
with
me
one
angry.
bedroom and one
I'm
living
very
room.
unhappy.
Ning Shu turned
Ning
on the
Shu placed
GPS
the phone
and
on the
found that
table
in
and listened
Shuchen
to
had
the
been
person
staying
on
in
the
the
other
hotel
side of the
all
phone
this
roaring.
time.
He
He
did not
calmly
stay
tied
with
up
Yan
his hair.
Suni. The
Ning
two of
Shu
them
put
probably
on a
had a
thick
conflict.
layer of makeup,
Yan
which
Suni
made
would
her
not
look
sleep
different
in
from
the same
before.
bed as in
She
Shuchen.
changed into pants
Moreover,
and clothes.
in Shuchen suddenly got
Was
a
she
divorce,
wearing a skirt
which
to
made
make it
Yan
convenient
Suni
for that
angry.
bastard?
He did not
After
know what
cleaning
was
up,
wrong with
Wang
Yan
Ku
Suni.
was still
She
cursing
said
on
that
the
she
other
was a
end of the phone.
germaphobe, but she
Ning
did not
Shu
seem to
stuffed
be
his
one.
phone into his
She
bag
was
and looked
also
at the
not
medicine he made
biologically
yesterday.
germaphobe.
He
She
changed
also
his
did
shoes
not
at
wear
the
a
entrance
mask
and
or
went
spray
out in high
disinfectant.
spirits.
She was
Even
also
if this
not a
world
germaphobe.
wasn't a place to relax,
She let her
he
boyfriend
still
marry
wanted to
her
do
best
it.
friend just
Ning
because
Shu
she
called
did
a
not want to
taxi
get
and went to the
married.
place Wang
She
Ku
was
said.
really sick. The place
After
Wang Ku
getting a
said was a
divorce
small
and
hotel.
buying a house,
Wang
Ning
Ku
Shu
was
spent a
wandering
lot
in
of
front
time
of the
on work.
hotel.
Moreover,
Wang Ku was a
the
skinny
company
man.
had a quota
He
to
was still
study
single
abroad.
and didn't even
Ning
have a
Shu wanted to
girlfriend.
fight for it.
That's why he
Xue
grabbed
Jing
Xue
had
Jing.
been working in this
The
company
taxi
since
stopped
she
in front of the
graduated
hotel
from
and Ning
university.
Shu paid the
Ning
fare.
Shu had a
What are
chance
you
to
doing?
fight for this quota.
Do you know how
The
long I've been
supervisor
waiting for
wanted
you?
to let an unmarried
Wang Ku
person
came
go.
over to Ning Shu
He was young
said
and did not
unhappily.
care about his family.
Ning Shu turned to look
Ning
at Wang
Shu
Ku.
directly told
Wang
the
Ku was
supervisor that he
ordinary
was
and not
divorced.
outstanding. He did not
He
have
was
a
just a
family
small
to worry
employee
about.
in the company.
The supervisor
That's why
thought
no
about it
woman
for
liked
half a
him.
day and gave
Although
the quota
Xue
to Ning
Jing
Shu.
wasn't as pretty as Yan
Xue
Suni,
Jing was
she
not
was
weak
still a
at
pretty
work
woman
and
who
had
was
been in the
pleasing
company
to
for
the
so
eye.
many years.
Wang Ku
The
probably
study would
knew his
start in
condition,
2 months,
so he forced
Therefore,
Xue Jing to
Ning
have
Shu
sex
had
with
to
him
think of a
every
way
time.
to settle the matter
Ning
between
Shu said
Shuchen
lightly,
and Yan
"I said I
Suni
have
within 2
something to
months.
do.
And
A
Shuchen
company
wanted
to
to
do
do
business.
business. Don't forget
Then
that
he
he
would
would
make
make
sure
sure
that
that
his
his business could
I'm
not be
also
done.
your man.
The mortgage
You have
house
to
would
accompany me
also
too,
become the
okay?
bank's. Wang
How could
Ku
a
sneered and
Shuchen,
said,
who had nothing,
"Going."
be with Yan Suni?
Wang Ku reached out to grab Ning
Shuchen, who was
Shu's
in
arm.
dire straits,
Ning Shu
did not
easily
know if
dodged.
Yan Suni could still
I can
feel
walk by
anything.
myself. Love
Wang
was
a kind of feeling, and this feeling could not withstand any kind of destruction, and went to the counter to get a room. Ning-Shu made himself a sumptuous dinner. Asked Ning-Shu. After eating, Ning-Shu was speechless. Then he moved his arms and did some warm-up exercises. Wang Ke hurriedly explained. Then he started to use the computer card. Ning-Shu started to attack, and Shuchen's video website. Mouth twitched, and Shuchen's website was still in its infancy. Still wanted her to pay for the room. There were not many employees. Ning-Shu was really disgusted. There was only one technician and 2 programmers. Moreover, you can pay by so many users watching videos online. Wang Ke's face trembled and he took out his card. Ning-Shu directly attacked the website server, and he still had to pay after by working card. For nearly 2 hours. Give us a room on the second floor. Was finally paralyzed. Ning-Shu said, many people were watching videos when they suddenly froze. Wang Ke took the room card and went upstairs. The website would not open. When he went upstairs, it was the same for live streams and wanted to touch Ning-Shu's beautiful and handsome man's live stream when they suddenly disappeared. After entering the room, Ning-Shu looked around the room. They could not open the website and a bathroom. Although there were
Wang
technicians
took
to
off his
save them,
clothes and
the
wanted
server
to hug
could not
Ning
be
Shu.
restored in a
Ning
short
Shu
time.
dodged,
Which made Wang
moved
his
very
stiff
unhappy
neck and did not
He
continue
said
to attack.
impatiently,
It
"You're
was enough
already
to
here.
keep them busy for
Why
a while.
are you still being
And
so
Shu
pretentious?"
saw that his website was
Ning
in a
Shu
mess.
smiled brightly.
He wanted to destroy
"It's
the
boring
world.
like this.
Why was it
We
so
want to have
hard to
fun."
do business?
Wang showed
After
an
half a
excited
day,
look and
the
said,
website
"How do
finally
you want to
returned
play?
to normal.
I'll let you."
However,
At
many
this
netizens
moment,
complained.
the doorbell rang,
and Shuchen
It
had
was the
no
water
choice.
delivery guy.
He could only
Wang
hire a
hurriedly
maintenance
took off his
technician to
clothes.
prevent the website
When
from
someone
breaking
came,
down
he
again.
immediately
This
huddled
time,
under the
he had
quilt.
already lost a portion
Ning
of his
Shu
users.
took over the kettle
He did
and
not
poured
earn
some
much
water
money
into a cup.
However, she
And
then put in the
Shuchen had a
medicine
bad
she made
feeling about the
yesterday and
investment.
shook it a little.
But now, he
Drink
could not
this.
back down.
Ning
He had
Shu said to
invested
Wang
so
Ku.
much in the early
Okay.
stage.
Wang
If he
Ku
was
now
now
excited
he would not
and
earn
nervous.
any money. His
He
throat
still
was
owed the
dry
bank
and
a
itchy.
few $100,000.
He took the water from
He
Ning
also
Shu.
had contracted
Wang
streamers.
Ku gulped down the water.
These were all
Ning
money-burning
Shu
things.
asked, "What are we
Therefore,
playing now?"
And Shuchen could
Ning
only
Shu
persevere.
smiled and said,
He was
"Don't
counting
worry.
on this website
Let's
to
play
earn some
something
money.
exciting.
Otherwise, he would
Wang
lose
shook
his
his
house.
head.
He
He
would
looked a
lose
little
everything.
tired.
And
He
Shuchen's
raised his
heart
eyes
was
and
heavy.
saw Ning Shu
He did not
walking
want to
over.
stay in a hotel.
Ning Shu reached
It
out
cost a
and
lot
strangled
to stay in a
Wangbo's
hotel.
neck.
This
Then he
was a
let
crucial
go.
time.
Wangbo's
He had to
face
save
was
as much as he
abnormally
could.
frightened. He tried his best to pull his neck. He looked like he couldn't breathe. In Wangbo's
Chapter
eyes,
1163.
this woman looked ferocious
And
and wanted
Shuchen
to
had
kill him.
never thought that
She
he would
was
be
strangling
in such
his
a
neck
sorry
with
state.
all her strength.
And Shuchen
He
walked
couldn't
out of
breathe.
the hotel and dragged his
Wangbo
suitcase
grabbed the
to Ning
glass
Shu's
and hit
house.
the woman's head with
After
all his
ringing the
strength.
doorbell,
In
an
fact, he hit
unfamiliar
himself.
man opened the door.
Then, in
And
Wangbo's
Shuchen's
eyes,
heart skipped
this
a beat
woman
when
was
he saw
killed
the
by
man,
him, and
but he
anger
still
rose
couldn't
in his
breathe.
heart.
This
Ning
woman
Shu
had
took
just
the
divorced
stick
him,
and drew a
and she
bloody
had
mouth
found
on his
another
face.
man so quickly.
He shouted at
And
Wangbo,
Shuchen even
"Give me back
suspected
my
that
life.
this woman had
Kill
wanted
me."
to divorce him a long time ago.
Chapter
And Shuchen felt
1153.
betrayed. This
Ning
woman
Shu
had said
opened
that
his
she wanted
mouth
to live a
wide,
normal
his
life
body
with him,
swaying
but
as
she
he
had
reached out
changed
to
her
strangle
mind so
Wang's
quickly.
neck.
And
Wang
Shuchen
Ku
could
was so
tolerate
scared
not
that his
loving
face was
Shuejing,
convulsing,
but he couldn't
He
tolerate
closed his eyes
Shuejing's
and
betrayal,
waved his hand,
especially
"Don't
when
come
his
over.
life was really
Don't come
difficult.
over."
This woman
Ning
was
Shu
actually
said
having
coldly,
fun with another
"You
man.
killed me. I'm
I
looking
want
for
you to pay
Shuejing."
with your life.
And Shuchen
No,
stared
I
at the
didn't
man
do it
unkindly.
unkindly.
He
Wang
pushed the
Ku's
man away
pupils
with his
constricted
bag
as
and
he
walked
watched
into the
Ning
house.
Shu approach.
"Who are you looking
In
for?"
Wang Ku's eyes,
"Why did you barge
Ning
into my
Shu's
house?"
face was covered in
The
blood
man
and his
blocked
hair was
Shuchen.
disheveled.
"Honey,
He
what's
looked like a
wrong?"
ghost. A woman
"I
came
won't
out
let
of the
you go.
kitchen.
You
Who
forced
is
me
this?
and killed me.
I don't know.
I'm going to pester
He barged
you."
in for no
Ning
reason.
Shu squeezed
Please
out
leave,
a voice from
or
his
I'll
throat.
call the police.
It was very
The man
creepy
stared
and
at
filled
Shuchen
with strong
warily,
resentment,
which
which made
Shuchen
Wang
looked
Ku's
at the
body tremble
unfamiliar
even
couple
more.
awkwardly.
"It wasn't me.
I
I
didn't
didn't
do it
Jing.
on purpose.
You mean the
Please
previous
forgive
owner?
me.
She sold
Wang
the
Ku
house to
begged.
us, and now
You still
this
want to
house
tell
is
others
ours."
about this.
And
Wang
Shuchen
Ku,
carried
give
his
me your
bag out
life.
and called Ning
Ning
Shu
Shu
angrily.
reached out to strangle
Ning
Wang
Shu
Ku's
picked
neck.
up the phone and
Wang
heard
Ku
Shuchen's
sobbed and
roar.
looked very scared.
"Why didn't you tell
In
me
the end,
before
he
selling
couldn't
the
take it
house?"
anymore and
Ning
ran out
Shu
of the
heard
hotel naked.
Shuchen's heavy
When he
breathing.
went downstairs,
Even if he
he
didn't see in
directly rolled
Shuchen's
down the
face,
stairs
he
and
could
ran away.
imagine in
He
Shuchen's
ran out
face
naked,
and his chest
causing
heaving
all
up and
kinds
down.
of screams.
And
The
Shuchen,
passers-by
"Are you
on the road
stupid?
all covered
This
their
house
eyes.
is mine,
And
and we're
Wang Ku,
divorced."
on the other hand,
"It's none of your
seemed to have
business whether I
encountered
sell the
something
house or not."
extremely terrifying
Ning Shu
as
said
he stumbled
coldly.
as he ran.
And Shuchen
In
then
the end,
remembered
he was
that he
caught
was the
by the
owner of this
patrolling
house,
traffic police,
but he had
and was
removed
taken
his
to the
name from the
detention
property
center.
certificate.
Wang Ku
He
was
had no
even
more
more
to
scared
manage
when
this
he
house
saw the
anymore.
police.
And Shuchen shook
Subconsciously,
his
he
head
killed
in
someone.
frustration.
Wang
If he
Ku's
had
whole
known,
body was
he wouldn't have
trembling like a
transferred
sieve.
this house to her.
He didn't say
This
a word,
way,
and
he
looked
would
at
also have
Shuejing,
control
whose
over
face
the
was
house.
covered in blood.
He had just checked
"I
out of the
killed
hotel
someone.
room.
I killed someone."
Where was he going now?
Wang Ku murmured.
And Shuchen carried
"Let me
his
go.
luggage to
I
Yen
won't do it
Suni's
again."
house.
When
Yen
the police
Suni
heard
opened
this,
the door
they
and
went
saw
to
the
the scene.
gloomy and
There was
Shuchen.
no dead body
She
at all.
sized him up.
After Wang
And
Ku ran
Shuchen's
away,
shirt was a
Ning
little
Shu
wrinkled,
went to the
and
bathroom
the
to
creases
wash
on
the
his
lipstick
leather
off his
shoes were
face.
very obvious.
He took out a
And
wide-brimmed
Shuchen
hat
was
from his
busy with the
bag and went
company's
out of the
affairs
hotel.
and didn't care
On
much
much about his image
Wang
for the
Ke
time
didn't go
being.
to work.
After all,
Ning
he
Shu
had
looked
to
at
solve
Wang
the
Ke's
problem
seat
of
and
survival
smiled
first.
faintly.
If
Lecherous
Shuchen's
thoughts,
business
but
was
not the
successful
guests.
now,
Don't
he
you
would
see how
naturally
many
have the
people and
time
ghosts
and
are
money
still
to
in love?
repackage himself.
Just like ghosts.
However,
They're scared to this
Shuchen had
extent.
too many things
The
on
head
his
of the
mind
office
right now.
contacted Wang Ke,
Suni,
but the
and
police
Shuchen
said that
called
Wang
out
Ke
to
had
Yen
run
Suni
away and would be
Yen
detained
Suni
for
looked
2
angry.
days.
The
You didn't
leader
even
was
tell me
speechless.
before getting a
Now,
divorce.
everyone in
I
the
don't want to
company
see you
knew
now.
about Wang Ke's secret. After getting out of the detention center,
Yen Suni
Wang Ke
slammed
went
the
to
door
work,
shut,
but he was
leaving
not in good
Shuchen standing
spirits.
outside the door
When the
in a
people in the
daze.
company saw
And
Wang
Shuchen
Ke,
could only
they couldn't
return to
help
the
covering
house
their
that he had
mouths
mortgaged
and
to the
laughing.
bank.
The drug
In fact,
that Ning Shu
the
gave
house
Wang
had not
Ku
been
was a
renovated
strong
at all.
hallucinogen that
And
could cause
Shuchen
people
had
to
bought it for
hallucinate
real
and cause drastic
speculation.
changes in
It
their
was
emotions.
used for investment.
At that time,
There wasn't even a
Wang
bed.
Ku's thinking was
It was
distorted.
really a house with
Everything
only
he
4
saw
walls.
and heard was
And
distorted
Shuchen got
by
more
Wang
and
Ku.
more annoyed.
Wang Ku
He
gulped
decided
down
to
the water,
stay at the company.
looking extremely
The company's
tired.
office
At
was
the same
also
time,
rented. There was an
and Shuchen didn't dare
indescribable
to think
panic
about
and
what would
fear on
happen
his
if he
face.
failed.
And
Hey,
Shuchen
Wang
slept
Ku,
on the company's
why are you
sofa
in the police
every day,
station?
covered
A
with a
male
blanket.
colleague stretched
When
out
the
his
sun
hand
rose,
and
he
patted
would put the
Wang Ku's
blanket
shoulder.
away.
However,
Wang Ku was
it
so
was very
scared that he fell from
inconvenient
his
for
chair
him to
and
wash
sat
up.
on the ground.
He also
The
couldn't
male
cook and
colleague's
ordered
hands
takeout
stopped in
every
midair.
day.
Between
He
the
looked at
two
Wang
women,
Ku in
none of them
surprise.
came to
Are
see
you
him.
okay?
Looking
I just
at the night
patted you
sky,
lightly.
and Shuchen felt
Wang
a
Ku
little
panicked
desolate,
and got up from
and
the
a
ground.
surge of sadness
He pulled a
welled
chair
up in
and
his
sat
heart.
down,
And
I-
Shuchen was
I'm doing
wallowing in
performance art.
self-pity, while Ning
Performance
Shu
art
was
you're
happily
really
cultivating.
The
His
male
phone
colleague
rang.
couldn't help but
Ning
say.
Shu saw
The
that it
other
was a
female
call from his
colleagues
mother.
looked at Wang
Ning
Ku's
Shu
strange
coughed
behavior.
and picked up the phone.
Ning Shu stood up and
Jing's
handed the
mother's
folder
voice
to
came
Wang
from the
Ku.
other end. He faintly
Jing
said,
Jing,
take
I
this
heard from
document
Suni
and
that you are
print it.
divorced.
Wang
What
Ku
happened?
raised his head
Your
and
father and
stretched
I
out
were the
his
last
hand
to
to
know
take the
about your
document.
marriage. When he
You
saw
didn't
Ning
even
Shu,
tell us that you
his
are
whole
divorced.
body froze.
If Suni
Ning
hadn't
Shu
called
was
us,
wearing
I wouldn't
bright
have
red
known that
lipstick
you are
today.
divorced. Because of the
Ning
powder
Shu
on her
sighed.
face,
He
her
didn't tell
complexion was
Jing's
very
parents
pale,
about this
which made her
beforehand.
mouth even
If
redder.
he told them,
bright
it would
red
only
and
make
glistening.
things more complicated.
At this moment,
With
Ning
the older
Shu was
generation
smiling
thinking,
at Wang
they
Ku,
would only
revealing his
persuade them to
porcelain white
reconcile
teeth.
and not divorce.
His teeth were
They
stained
would
with
just
lipstick,
let them live with
which
it.
looked
How could
particularly
they live
strange.
with it?
Why
In
did they
an
have
instant,
to? All
they
the
couldn't.
hair on Wang
Ning
Ku's
Shu
body
said
stood
lightly,
up. Mom,
his head buzzed,
don't listen to
making
Yen
Wang
Suni.
Ku's brain go
Yen
blank.
Suni and
Ning
Shuchen
Shu
are
frowned
together.
and unhappily
She
said,
doesn't want to get
"What
married,
are you doing?"
so she used
Hurry up
me
and
as a
copy
shield.
it.
You
These
didn't
two
come to
have
work a
always
few
been
days
together,
ago, so there's a
Shui
backlog
Jing's
of work
mother
here.
was speechless.
Hurry up and hand in
This
your
can't
copy.
be. This
Wang
is the
Ku
truth.
just stared blankly
Yen
at
Suni
Ning
didn't
Shu's
tell you,
bright
right?
red lips wriggling,
She didn't tell you
as
why
if he
I
had
got
drunk
divorced,
blood.
right?
His teeth were
Ning
covered
Shu
with
said
blood.
with a cold smile.
There's a ghost.
This girl, how
Wang
could she
Ku
do
issued
this?
a sharp
You are
scream from
neighbors
his
after
throat.
all.
His
You grew up
colleagues in
together.
the office were
Shui
startled.
Jing's mother
They
was
stared
very
blankly
angry
at Wang Ku, who suddenly
Mom,
went crazy.
You don't have to worry about
Wang
this.
Ku fell to the ground.
I will take care of it.
He kept
Don't
retreating
worry,
with
I
a
am
look of
fine.
fear. Ning
Shu
Shu
said
was
calmly.
also dumbfounded.
After getting rid of them,
he turned to his
your
colleague
daughter
and asked,
will have a better
"What's wrong
future."
with him? After some
I think
time,
there's something
I will
wrong
be
with
going
his
abroad
brain.
to further my
The colleague
studies.
couldn't help but
You
roll
must
his
take
eyes.
good care of yourselves.
Ning Shu took the
I will send
document
you some
and
money
walked
later.
toward Wang Ku.
Keep it for
Wang
yourself.
Ku rolled and
Your
crawled away
father
from
and
Ning
I are
Shu.
doing well.
Don't come
We
over.
have money to spend.
Don't come over.
Bring more money with
Wang
you
Ku,
and come back
what's wrong
before
with
you
you?
go abroad.
Ning Shu
Okay.
snappily said. Ning
As
Shu
soon
hung
as
up
Ning
and
Shu
stared at the
approached
phone.
Wang Ku,
Yen
Wang
Suni
Ku
was
was really
terrified.
shameless.
There's a ghost.
She actually
ghost.
called Shui Jing's
Hey,
parents to
Wang
complain.
Ku,
She's
did
not
she
a ghost.
want her to remarry
She's
and
Shui
Shui
Jing.
Jing? What kind
A
of
colleague
weirdo
said,
was this?
He then looked
Ning
at Ning
Shu was
Shu,
angry
but
and unhappy.
Shui Jing, your makeup skills are not up to standard. White face
He
and
picked
red
up the
lips.
computer on
You
the
do
coffee
look like a
table
ghost.
and wanted to torture
Ning
and
Shu
Shuchen.
rolled his eyes.
Ning Shu
Nonsense.
started to attack
White
the
face
website
and
server.
black lips would look like a
Soon,
ghost.
The server's
This
CPU
is
was
charming
very
and
high
sexy
and it
makeup.
couldn't run.
The
Sexy
video couldn't
makeup?
be played.
Look at how
the
scared
loaded
Wang Ku
chrysanthemum
is.
kept spinning,
The female
but
colleague
nothing could be
snappily
seen.
said.
Could you
She's a
imagine the
ghost,
feeling of
not a
despair
human,
when the
a
internet
ghost.
speed was slow
Wang
and the
Ku
video
shouted,
couldn't be played?
"Can't you see that
There were
she's a
also
ghost?"
live stream shows
Ning
where the
Shu
streamer helplessly
helplessly
waved
waved
his hand at
It
the
was all
crowd
black.
and returned to
The
his
feeling
seat.
in his heart was,
Wang Ku stared
"Fuck,
at Ning Shu
fuck,
and carefully returned
and
to his
Shuchen's
seat.
face was pale.
He couldn't help but
He
hit
ordered
his head
someone
and
to deal
rubbed
with
his
it
eyes
quickly
before
while
looking
looking
at
at
the
Ning Shu.
technician typing
Ning
on the
Shu
keyboard.
pulled his
And
scarlet lips
Shuchen
and
rubbed
said
his
with
head and couldn't
dissatisfaction,
help but
"Wang
slam
Ku,
his fist on the
do
table.
you have something against
The
me?"
documents on the
Wang
table
Ku's
jumped.
face turned green.
Why are you looking at me?
He didn't dare to look
Hurry
at
up
Ning
and
Shu.
fix it. His
And
expression
Shuchen
was
saw the
extremely
staff staring at
confused,
him and
as if he
couldn't help
couldn't
but
find
shout.
his bearings.
The staff
For the whole
immediately
day,
got busy.
Wang Ku was in
and
a daze.
Shuchen looked at the website.
He
did everything in a daze.
It was still not fixed.
Every time someone called him, he would only react after a few times. The supervisor had been observing
Chapter
Wang Ku,
1164.
but Wang Ku couldn't
Hurry
feel
up,
it.
it's been
Every
more
time
than an
Ning
hour.
Shu spoke to Wang Ku,
Shuchen couldn't
Wang
help
Ku's
but
face
urge,
would tremble
although
as he stared at
Shuchen
Ning
was
Shu
urging
in a
him.
daze.
This wasn't an
As
easy
soon as Ning
task.
Shu came closer,
After a while,
Wang
the
Ku trembled
website
in
returned
fear.
to normal.
I was wrong.
However, the loss
Don't
was
follow
quite
me
big.
anymore. Many
I was
users'
really
data
wrong.
was lost. Everyone
This
in the
meant that
office
users
stared at
who
Ning
had
Shu.
already registered
Ning
might
Shu
not
waved
exist
his
anymore
hand.
after
Am
logging
I really
into their
that
accounts.
scary? Moreover,
Is he crazy?
in Shuchen's website
Someone
used
asked.
a VIP
Kind
system,
of.
which
The
meant that
others
the
nodded.
customer's money was
Wang
gone.
Ku looked like a
And
crazy
Shuchen
person.
slapped his
Others
forehead
said
when
that
he heard
Wang
the
Ku looked
technician's
like a
words.
crazy person,
The
but
website
Wang
couldn't
Ku
be
felt
logged
that
in,
these people
which
were
made
blind.
the netizens curse. They said that this was a lousy website that would have problems
1154.
every few days.
The woman was
They
already
wanted a better
dead,
server,
but these people were
all
still
complained
talking
that their
to her
accounts
and
were
working
gone
with her.
and that they had charged
She's a
so
ghost.
much money.
She's already dead.
Seeing that a
Wake
riot
up.
was about to break
Wang
out,
screamed.
some people even
Wang
complained
felt
that
like he was the
Inshuchen was
only
cheating
one
them
awake
of
in
their
this
money.
world.
And
This
Inshuchen
feeling
had
was
no
too
choice
painful.
but to get people to
She's
provide
dead.
their
She's
accounts
really
and
dead.
passwords.
In Wang's
Then
mind,
he would return
this
the
woman
accounts
was
to them.
smashed in the head
However,
by him with a glass,
there were some people
and her
who wanted
face
to
was
fish
covered
in
in
troubled
blood.
waters.
Everyone,
They provided
Ning
fake
Shu
accounts
asked,
and became
"How did I die?
VIPs.
Tell me."
However, Inshuchen didn't get a
Even
single
though there was
cent.
still the effect
Instead,
of the
he lost
hallucinogen
money
in his body,
Inshuchen
Wang
lost
couldn't
his
dare
temper
to say
because
that he
of this.
killed Ning Shu.
He had already
What are you
hired
doing?
these
It's time to
technicians to
work.
maintain the
What's the
website,
fuss?
but it still had
The
problems.
supervisor came out of the
Inshuchen
office
was
and
under
stared
a
at
lot of
everyone
pressure.
with an
He
unfriendly
lost
face.
a lot of weight and
Everyone
looked
in the
dispirited.
office returned
His face
to their
was
seats.
yellow.
No
The
matter
supervisor
what,
was
he had to
especially
persevere.
unfriendly and
After
stared
two
at
major
Wang
attacks
Ku in a daze.
Ning Shu wasn't so
Come to my
brazen
office.
anymore.
What
The
if
supervisor
Inshuchen
said,
called the police?
Wang Ku
Her
stood
hacking
still
skills
and stared
couldn't
at
be
Ning
compared
Shu,
to
who
those
was
looking
having
at
to
the
find
computer.
people.
She
Seeing
had to
that
study
Wang Ku
hard.
didn't follow,
Ning
the
Shu
supervisor
only
opened the
infiltrated
office door,
silently,
stuck his head
She
out,
wouldn't
and
paralyze
roared,
the website.
"Hurry up!" She would
Wang
only
could
slow
tremble
down
and
the
hurried
website
into
and
the
slow down the
supervisor's
response.
office.
She
The
wouldn't even be
supervisor's
able
voice
to
could
watch
be vaguely
videos
heard
from
from
outside the
this
office.
way.
When
Inshuchen's
Wang Ku
website
came
would
out,
slowly
he looked
lose
very
users.
disappointed. Other than
Wang
attacking
Ku,
Inshuchen's
are you okay?
website,
A
Ning
colleague
Shu
asked
also
Wang Ku.
started to prepare
The
to go
supervisor
abroad.
told me to go back
She
and
definitely
rest.
had to study
Wang
and
Ku said,
improve herself so
Wang
that
Ku
she
was
could be
not
promoted
fit to
to
work
a
at all.
higher position
Wang
in the
Ku
future.
didn't say that the
Although she
supervisor
was
told him to
frustrated
go
in love,
and have his brain
she had
checked.
to be successful
He didn't
in her
have a
career.
problem,
But
these
Ning Shu
people
was
did.
busy with work
Wang
and didn't
Ku,
answer
come back to
Inshuchen
work
and
when you're
Yen
done
Sun's
resting.
calls. The company
She couldn't
can't
be
do
bothered
without
to
you.
listen to them.
Ning Shu
There
said
was
to
no
Wang
point
Ku
in getting
faintly.
entangled
The
with
hair
these
on
people.
Wang Ku's
But
face
Ning
stood
Shu
up.
didn't expect
He
that
shuddered
Yen
and
Suni
ran away
would come to
without
her
looking
company.
back. When Ning
Ning
Shu got
Shu
off work,
shrugged
she
helplessly
went
at
out
everyone.
and saw Yen
Seeing
Suni
the
waiting
folder
for
on
her at
Wang
the
Ku's
entrance
desk,
of the company.
he picked it up and
Ning
chased
Shu
after Wang
pretended
Ku.
not to see her and
Wang
walked
Ku,
away.
wait, your folder.
Jing
Wang Ku
Jing
looked back and saw
Yen
Ning
Suni
Shu
caught
with his
up
mouth
with Ning
wide
Shu.
open.
Ning
ran
Shu
even
turned around
faster.
and asked, "Don't
What's
chase
the
me,
matter?
don't chase me.
It's getting
Please
dark
let me
now.
go, please.
Let me treat you to dinner."
Ning Shu stopped
Yen
and
Suni
looked
said,
indifferently at
the
Wang
two of
Ku's
them
panicked
entered the
back.
Chinese
She
restaurant.
was too weak. Ning Shu
How did she
ordered
look like
some
a
dishes,
ghost?
and the dishes
should
were
at least
served
be
one
slapped
after
to
another.
see if she was a
Ning
human
Shu
or a
said while
ghost.
eating,
Why are
Ning
you
Shu
looking
took
for me?
Wang Ku's briefcase back to his office and threw it on Wang Ku's
If
desk.
it's about Inshuchen,
Where's
you
Wang
don't
Ku?
have to say anything.
You didn't give the bag
What
to him?
else do you think we can
The
talk
female
about other
colleague
than
sitting next to
Inshuchen?
Ning Shu asked.
Yen Suni asked.
He ran away.
Ning Shu nodded.
When he saw me,
That's
it
right.
was as if he had
Women
seen a
are
ghost.
only men.
There's
Ning Shu
nothing
said
else to
snappily.
say. Then
Jing
he began
Jing,
to work.
if I break up
After
with
resting for a
Inshuchen,
few days,
you won't be so
Wang
cold
Ku
to me,
came to the
right?
company to
Yen
resign.
Suni asked.
The supervisor
Ning
was
Shu
not
picked up a piece
satisfied
of
with
boiled
Wang
fish
Ku
with
in
her
his
chopsticks,
blew
Wang
on
Ku
it,
was the
and
kind
put
of
it into
employee
her
in the
mouth.
office who had no
Why would
taste for food
I'll
and
always
no
be
taste
cold
for
to you.
abandoning.
Yen
On
Suni
top of
sighed.
that,
Wang Ku
I
had been a
didn't
little
expect you to
crazy
mind
recently,
so much.
so he took the
Then I'll
initiative
break up
to
with
resign
Inshuchen.
and didn't even
You
have to
guys
pay him
live
3
happily
months'
together.
salary. Ning
Therefore,
Shu's expression
the
didn't
supervisor
change.
agreed without hesitation.
Now that Inshuchen is down and his company
Wang Ku
isn't doing
packed his
well,
things
you
and
want to
left.
leave him? Ning
Aren't
Shu
you guys
asked
in
Wang
true
Ku,
love?
"Do you have a problem
Ning
with
Shu
me?"
said as she ate.
"Why did you resign?
Being single has
Wang Ku's
endless
face turned
possibilities.
green.
He
Ning
looked at
Shu
Ning
noticed
Shu with
another
smoky
characteristic
makeup
of
and
Yen
dark
Suni.
circles under his eyes.
She was a playboy.
What
It
do you
wasn't
want?
necessarily that she was
I don't
a
want
playboy,
anything.
but she was an
Ning Shu
extremely
dragged his
emotional
words.
person.
Wang Ku
Obviously,
hurriedly
the
packed
current
his things
Inshuchen
and ran
didn't
away with
match
the
Yen
briefcase.
Suni's feelings.
Ning Shu
She
heaved
was
a
sick of
long
him.
sigh of relief.
If she didn't feel
So
anything,
far,
she
one
would
of them
break
had been
up.
dealt with.
Jing
That
Jing
bastard was
"Can you
scared
not
to
be
death.
so mean? If
The
Wang
most
Ku
important
still
thing
wanted
for
to
us
find
now
trouble
is
with
to
her,
solve
she
the
had a
problem.
backup plan.
Solve the
The
problem between
hallucinogen
the
was
three
very
of us.
strong and
Yen
had a certain
Suni said
effect on the
helplessly.
central nervous
Ning
system.
Shu blinked.
If Wang
I'm
Ku
being
still
mean, wanted to pester her,
the problem has
then
been
she would
solved
have to
perfectly.
experience the
I'm
same
divorced
feeling
to
again.
fulfill your true
After
love.
dealing with Wang
How
Ku,
else do you want to
there
solve
would be
it?
no danger
Yen
of
Suni,
exposing her
don't
affair.
push your luck.
The things
Ning
that
Shu
people
said
did
coldly.
when they were angry
Yen
were
Suni was
usually
about
not
to
to
speak
speak when her
smartest.
phone rang.
Don't make the wrong
Yen
decision
Suni
when
picked
you
up
are
her
angry.
phone and glanced
This
at Ning
decision
Shu.
was 100%
She walked out of the
wrong.
private room
Why
to
did
answer
you
the
have
call.
to use such a
As
stupid
Ning
way
Shu
to take
ate,
revenge?
she pricked up her
A
ears
man's
to listen
pride
to what
couldn't
Yen
stand a
Suni was
woman
saying.
cheating on him.
About 7
The
or
premise
8
was
minutes
that the
later,
man cared
Yen
about the
Suni
woman.
came in.
Didn't
Her
she
face
just
was
look like
slightly
someone
flushed,
who cared
and
about
with her
Shui-Jing?
thick and curly
After
hair,
settling
she was
this
very
matter,
beautiful.
the next thing was
Ning
Shu
Shu
narrowed
and
his
Yen
eyes and
Suni's
stared
matter.
at Yen Suni.
How should he settle
Yen
it?
Suni felt
Ning
a
Shu
little
thought about it
uncomfortable under Ning
repeatedly in
Shu's
his gaze,
gaze,
so she
Speaking
picked up
of
her
which,
chopsticks
it was quite
and ate.
tough.
However,
This family
Ning
was
Shu
basically
finished
controlled
most of
by
the food on the
Shui-Jing.
table.
Yen
Moreover,
Suni
before
raised
the
her
two of them
chopsticks
got married,
and spun
they
around
didn't
before
have a
putting them
prenuptial
down.
agreement.
Ning Shu
Shui-Jing
suspected
didn't
that
even
Yen
know how
Suni
much
already
money
had a new
Ning Shu
boyfriend.
had.
Otherwise,
Shui-Jing was the
why
one
would she
who
call
paid
him
the down
behind his
payment
back?
for the wedding house.
Ning Shu asked
Shui-Jing
casually,
was the one
was
who
it
paid all the
who called
expenses.
just now? So, was there a difference between marriage and not marriage? It's about
Furthermore,
work. She had to serve in Shuchen. It wasn't in
wash his
Shuchen
underwear,
who called,
rub his
if
socks,
it was about work,
iron his shirt,
then it obviously
and wake up
wasn't
early
about
in the
work.
morning to prepare
And
breakfast.
Shuchen might have been cheated
After the
on.
showdown,
Yen
Shuchen
Suni took out
cheated on
Shui
him
Jing's
and
neatly
so did
folded
Shui
clothes
Jing.
from the closet.
If he wanted
and
to
placed them
live,
in the briefcase,
he had to be cheated
then
on.
he dragged
Why
the briefcase
didn't Shuchen
and
have
left.
to drag two
Ning
women
Shu
down?
cultivated
Jing
until the
Jing.
next morning.
I rarely
After
contact
breakfast,
Shuchen now.
he went to look for
I will
Shuchen.
slowly break up
Ning
with him.
Shu arrived at
Maybe
Yen
I won't
Suni's house
appear in your
and
life
pressed the
anymore.
doorbell. Will you
Yen
not hate
Suni
me then?
opened the door.
Yen
Her
Suni
hair
stared
was
at Ning
loose
Shu,
and she was wearing a
Ning
long
Shu
t-shirt,
wiped her mouth
revealing a
unhurriedly
pair
and
of
stood
fair
up
and
with her
slender
bag.
legs.
He picked
She
up
was
a plate
barefoot
and
and her
walked in front of
small
Yen
pink toes
Suni.
were painted with red nail polish. Her feet looked
pulled
especially
open
good
Yen
on the
Suni's
carpet.
collar and poured
So
the plate of
beautiful.
oil and
The
leftovers
model's
into
figure
Yen
was
Suni's
really
clothes.
not to be
Yen
underestimated.
Suni screamed
She
and
looked
stood
so
up,
good in a
quickly
t-shirt.
reaching into her
She
clothes
looked good
to
even
wipe.
when wrapped in curtains.
What are you doing?
Jing Jing.
Yen Suni screamed
Yen
at Ning
Suni
Shu.
looked at Ning Shu
She
with
was
a
wearing a
complicated
dress today,
expression
and the
turned
oil
to
had
the
flowed
side.
down to her
Come
calves.
in.
Her
Ning
clothes
Shu
were soaked
changed
with
his
oil,
shoes at the
so
entrance
one could
and
imagine
walked into
how
the living
pathetic
room.
her situation was
He
under
sized
the
up
clothes.
Yen Suni's house.
Yen Suni's
Don't
house
throw
was
all the
decorated
trash you don't want at
fashionably
me.
and beautifully.
You don't want that old
to be
man in
honest,
Shuchen
as a
anymore.
woman,
So
she had to be
pushed
an
him to me.
exquisite woman
Am I
like
a
Yen
garbage
Suni.
collection center?
Ning
why
Shu
did she
said
have to
coldly,
push others into the
"Damn,
fire
it
pit?
was really annoying
She didn't
because
ask
of
for
a
you
man.
to do anything for
If it
others,
weren't for the fact
but
that
she
he was
also
afraid
didn't want
of
to push
committing a
others
crime
into the fire
Ning
pit.
Shu really wanted
Perhaps
to chop
Yen
and Shuchen
Suni
up.
didn't think it was a
Shui
fire
Jing,
pit.
do you think
Drink.
you're a good person?
This is your favorite
You still
juice.
like in Shuchen.
Yen Suni placed a
Shuchen
glass
is my
of
boyfriend.
orange juice in front of
What you're
Ning
doing
Shu
is
and
immoral.
sat down
You
opposite
stole
him.
my boyfriend.
When she sat down,
the two of you
her
were just
legs
married.
looked especially
So
long.
what if you're married?
They were fair,
Yen Suni
tender,
picked up
and
the
beautiful.
plate on the table and
Beauty
threw
was a
it
gift
at
from
Ning Shu.
God.
Although Yen Suni's workability wasn't as good as Shui Jing's, her savings were much better than Shui Jing's.
Chapter
Ning Shu didn't drink the
1165
juice and asked Yen
Yen
Suni,
Suni's body
"Where's
was
in
covered
Shuchen?
in greasy
I want to
soup."
talk to him." She was furious.
He went to work overtime.
She picked up the plate
He
on
had
the
an
table
impromptu
and
meeting.
threw it at Ning
Yen
Shu.
Suni brushed
Ning
her hair
Shu
and
dodged
said,
the plate in a
Ning
flash.
Shu was speechless.
The plate fell to the
The
ground with a
atmosphere was
loud
so
clang,
awkward.
smashing
A wife
into
asking
pieces
her
and
husband's
splashing
girlfriend
everywhere
where
her husband went.
Yen Suni,
This relationship
you
was
finally
really
tore off your
complicated
mask
and
of
abnormal.
hypocrisy.
But in Shuchen
Ning
and
Shu
Yen
opened the
Suni
door
didn't
of the
think it was
private room
wrong
and left.
because from the
Yen
beginning,
Suni had
Shui
always
Jing's
been like
existence
this.
was to
She
avoid
thought
the
she was a good
existence of
person
Shuchen's
and
parents.
imposed her own
They
selfish
didn't think that
desires on
Shui
others.
Jing would affect their
After
relationship.
leaving the restaurant,
Ning Shu thought for a while and went to
Chapter
look for a private
1155.
detective agency. And Shuchen
It was
and
definitely
Yen
the
Suni didn't
right
have
choice
any
to look
burdens.
for a private detective
They treated
agency
Shui
for this
Jing
kind
as
of
if she didn't
adultery
exist.
and adultery.
Shui
Ning
Jing was
Shu
the
found
only
the
one
photo
who
on his
cared.
phone.
It made
It was a
Shui
photo
Jing
of
look
Shui
like the
Jing
crazy
and
one.
Yen Suni.
The two looked
Ning
at each
Shu
other
asked the
speechlessly.
private detective to
Yen
pay attention
Suni
to
sighed.
Yen Suni's
Ning
movements.
Shu said, "It would be
Jing
best
Jing,
if he could take
didn't
some
I
photos."
tell you that you and
Ning
Shu
Shu
should
felt
live
that Yen
happily?
Suni had another
I
man.
won't destroy your marriage.
After coming out of the private
You know that I
detective
won't get
agency,
married,
Ning
but you're
Shu
still
walked
throwing
back.
a tantrum.
The night wind
Although
blew
he
on
knew
Ning
that
Shu's
Yen
face.
Suni often
The
said
air
this
was a
when he
little
received
cold
the
in his
storylines.
lines. Ning Shu couldn't help
put
but
his
tremble
index
when he
finger
heard it
on
from
the
Yen
corner of
Suni's
his
mouth.
mouth.
Are
He
the
three
three
of
of
us
us
going
going
to
to maintain
maintain
this
face?
relationship?
23:33
asked in surprise.
Next time I really
The
have to
problem
choose
is that
an
I'm
easier
already
task.
married to Yen
I
Shuchen.
suddenly can't take it
And
anymore.
Shuchen is already
Ning Shu
married.
said with a smile.
Marriage is a
All the functions in the
responsibility and
system
a
space were
responsibility.
turned off.
He should
He
bear
couldn't
the
contact other
corresponding
people.
legal and moral
Ning Shu
obligations
felt
to
like
his
he was the
family
only
and
one in the
society.
whole world.
Ning Shu
Emotions
stared at
were
Yen
like
Suni.
menstruation,
But in
They were
Shuchen has
cyclical.
already given you
One
a
period
marriage.
of time,
Yen
it was
Suni
like
looked
being
helpless.
injected with chicken
She
blood.
brushed her hair
Another
behind her
period
ear.
of time, they
Jing
would fall
Jing,
into
I don't know
self-doubt.
what you're upset about.
Recently,
Ning
Ning
Shu
Shu
had
and
been
I were
entering missions
originally a
nonstop.
couple.
I
There
was
was no
already
way to
said
relax.
countless times that
He
I
was a
won't
little
destroy
tired.
your marriage.
Okay, I won't.
23:33
I definitely won't.
said, Ning
You
Shu,
have a little
stop
endocrine
talking.
disorder.
I want to be
Find a
alone.
man.
Don't you
Why don't
think
we
that
talk
your
about
relationship
dating
with
next to adjust
Shuchen
our
is
mood?
immoral?
Ning Shu couldn't help but
said,
ask.
Emperor,
Ning Shu
Prince,
felt very
President,
tired. General,
he felt like he
Boy
couldn't
Toy
communicate
Demon
with her.
her. You choose one.
Yen Suni felt that Ning Shu was being unreasonable. I don't know how many of these people I've crippled. Fucking righteous. Instead of conquering a scumbag, using her good friend, I might as well kill these people and like she was doing charity. If you want to pick one of these, I'd rather kill you. Ning Shu was also shocked by Xiao Tianquan's mission world. Once the mission was completed, from a certain point of view, they would have to leave the world. Marriage is immoral. How could they fall in love? It restricts one's freedom to pursue love. And how could she fall in love with someone who can guarantee that they will only love one person in their life? Who aimed to climb Everyone to the top of the mountain. To pursue happiness. He would not be greedy for the scenery on the mountainside. If he climbed to the top of the mountain, he would be able to see everything. Why did you enter this 33 in the first place? For a while.
Since you're
if
married,
someone likes
you should at
will
least follow the contract
Why should
and
I
abide
stop?
by the rules of the game.
Ning Shu said
if you
in
break
surprise,
the rules like this,
no one can
then
stop
don't
me.
play anymore.
No one has
if
the right to ask
was
me
single,
to stop.
I wouldn't care
Because
if he
played
played
like
this.
Ning Shu wouldn't
said
be able to
impatiently.
control his own
Yen
destiny.
Suni pouted.
If he couldn't even
Isn't
control
it because
his own
Shuchen's
life,
parents
how could he
are
talk
very
about
sensitive?
happiness? Ning Shu,
Alright, damn, I'm completely speechless. What should I do? You don't want to get married, so you want me to marry him?
He didn't expect
Ning
that there was
Shu really
still
wanted to
something
crack
waiting
open
for him.
Yen Suni's beautiful
Some film
head
companies
to see what
wanted
was
his
inside.
website to take down
Aren't
their
you
works.
in a hurry to get
Otherwise,
married?
they would
He's
have to
also
go
in
to
a
court
hurry to
and
get
either
married.
buy the copyright
Perfect
or
my
sign a
ass.
contract.
Ning Shu had
Shuchen
never
had
felt
spent
so
almost
powerless
all his
before.
money on it.
He didn't want
Now,
to talk to
he
her
didn't
at all.
have the money.
He didn't want
He
to
could
talk.
only take
He
down
didn't want
some
to talk,
movies and
even
TV
if the
series.
original owner was
This
an old
website
leftover
didn't have
woman.
many
It
users
didn't
to
mean
begin
that she
with.
would marry any
In
man.
addition, there were many
Ning
things
Shu
that couldn't
picked
be
up
watched.
the fruit juice on the
In the
coffee
end,
table and
the
drank
website
it.
was even
After
more
talking
deserted.
for a while, his
the
mouth
website
wasn't
dry.
profitable.
In the end,
And
he was
Shuchen
playing
still
the
had
lute
to pay
to a cow.
salaries.
You say
The
you're right,
salaries
I
of the
say I'm
technical
right.
staff and
They couldn't
programmers
be together
weren't
at
low.
all. This
Yen
made him
Suni reached
reached
out
and
and
held
really
Ning Shu's
conflicted.
hand. In the
Ning
end,
Shu
and
flung her
Shuchen
hand
decided
away
to
without
change his
thinking.
alias.
Yen Suni
He
looked
opened
a
a
little
new domain
stunned
name
and a
and
little
started
sad.
over.
Jing
After
Jing,
all, there
we
were
grew up
servers
together
and
and
people.
shared everything.
He could apply for
You
a
just
new
have to
domain
live a
name
good
and
life
start the
within
website
Shuchen.
again.
I can
And
give
Shuchen was
Shuchen
busy
love,
for a few
but
months.
I can't give him marriage.
Finally, he
You
created
two
the
are
new
going
website.
to be together forever.
Then he called Yen
I'm
Suni
only
and asked
seizing
her to do
day
a
and
live
night.
broadcast
I
to
don't ask
increase
for
his
eternity.
popularity.
Yen
Speaking
Suni
of
looked at
which,
Ning Shu.
and Shuchen felt
I
that he
hope that
hadn't
we
seen
won't
Yen
think that this
Suni
matter
in a long
is
time.
estranged.
And
Ning
Shuchen was
Shu's
prepared
face
to
was
tidy
cold.
himself up
Be a
and meet
bitch.
Yen Suni.
Ning
And
Shu
Shuchen
wasn't
asked
angry at
Yen
all.
Suni over
He
the phone.
only felt powerless.
Yen Suni
It was an
reluctantly agreed.
indescribable sense
The two
of
of them met at a
powerlessness.
Western restaurant.
Yen Suni
When
didn't
Yen
think that she
Suni
was
saw
wrong.
Shuchen, she
She
blurted
couldn't
out,
even realize
"How did
that
you
she was
become
wrong.
like this?
How could
And
you
Shuchen
expect her
looked
to feel
very
guilty?
haggard.
There
Instead,
were wrinkles
she felt
at the
that you were
corners of his
heartless,
eyes.
unrighteous,
And Shuchen
and
was almost
unreasonable.
40 years old.
Why are you
In
here
the
this
past,
time? He had lived
Yen
like a
Suni
prince
changed
and
the
was a
topic.
middle-level manager
Ning
in
Shu
the company.
passed the glass of
However,
fruit juice to Yen
recently,
Suni.
and Shuchen
I'm
had
very
suffered
thirsty.
a lot.
Pour
He was
me
under
another
a
glass.
lot of psychological
Yen
pressure.
Suni was stunned
His
and
body
poured
was
another
tired.
glass.
Ning Shu gulped it down and said, "I'll wait for Shuchen to come back." Yen Suni agreed without hesitation. Chapter 1166. The two of them silently waited for Shuchen wasn't in a good state, but he had started to do yoga and exercise. However, Yen Suni cross-legged on the sofa and practiced his ultimate martial expression made Shuchen's back break out in cold in the afternoon. It was very wearing
awkward.
a well-ironed suit.
It was as if
and
he
was
had been
tall.
stripped naked
He
in
was
public,
also handsome,
and it was said by
Ning
someone
Shu
who liked
always
him.
felt that
It was
this
very
plot should be about a
embarrassing.
city couple
And
looking for
Shuchen
love.
couldn't help but
The
pull
main
his clothes
characters
together
were Yen
and change
Suni
the
and
topic.
Shuchen. How have you
After
been?
going around in
And
circles,
Shuchen looked at
they
Yen
finally
Suni.
got married.
She was still
True
beautiful.
love finally
in
made
front
the
of her,
unmarried
and
Yen
Shuchen
Suni get
felt
married.
a little ashamed.
When Shuchen
"I'm good.
saw Ning Shu,
How about you?"
he didn't say
Yen
anything
Suni
and frowned.
said, "How's
Yen
your company?"
Suni said to Shuchen first,
"Not bad,
talk
but
nicely.
I want to invite you to
Don't
do a
quarrel."
live broadcast."
Ning Shu
and
was
Shuchen said
speechless.
with difficulty.
Ning Shu
Yen
really
Suni
couldn't get
hesitated
used to
for
this
a
strange
moment before
relationship.
nodding in
Ning
agreement.
Shu's heart
Then,
thumped.
the two
Husband,
of them were
wife,
speechless.
mistress,
After
this,
a meal,
this,
the two of them
and
parted
Shuchen
ways.
put down his bag
and
and tugged
Shuchen
at his
wanted
tie.
to settle the new
Ning
website
Shu
as soon as
asked,
possible
"Have you
so
thought
that he
it
could
through?
appear in
Do
front
you want
of
to get a
Yen
divorce?"
Suni in a glamorous manner. Shuchen,
Ning
you
Shu
can't get a
received a
divorce.
photo from the
If you
private
get a divorce,
investigator.
how are you going
It was
to
a photo
explain it
of
to your
Yen
parents?
Suni having dinner
Jing
with a
Jing
man,
just
but
can't
it wasn't
figure
in
it out.
Shuchen.
Yen
And
Suni said
Shuchen
quickly,
was busy with
if
work.
the two of them got
The
a divorce,
private
she would
investigator
be forced
gave
to
Ning
get
Shu
married
the
as
man's
Shuchen's
information.
girlfriend. He was the
She
general
would rather
manager
die
of
than get
Fengxian
married.
Group.
Her
Her
soul
soul
was free.
However,
This
marriage
would
would
only
only
imprison
imprison
her
her
soul.
soul. He was a
A woman's
son-in-law
beautiful
who
life
married
wasn't
into the
just
wife's
about
family.
marriage.
The entire
Yen
Fengxian
Suni was a
Group
little
was
afraid
actually
of marriage,
managed by his
but more
wife.
than that,
It
she
was
didn't
said
want
that
to be
Chen
tied
Zheng's
down.
wife was a
This
famous
kind of
career
marriage
woman.
will hurt everyone.
Everyone called her a
Why
tigress.
don't we just get a divorce?
Chen Zheng was
I'm not
famous
good enough
for loving his wife. That's
He
why
didn't
you
care
don't
if
want to
others
marry
said
me.
that he was
And
henpecked.
Shuchen said
They
helplessly,
said that he was henpecked because he respected his wife. I'm fucking beside you. A man who loved and respected his wife was now having dinner with another woman. The three of us are in this kind of relationship by another woman. If you can accept it, we won't get a divorce. Not many men liked a woman who was truly independent. Then we'll get a divorce. Most of them wanted a woman who relied on them and treated them like the sky. He really wanted to give this guy a big slap. They were all revealed of the two of them being intimate. I agree. Ning Shu paid and took the photos. Live happily together. He mailed one to Qin Zheng's wife and one to Wen Shuqian. It's good that you thought it through. It wasn't that not asking a man to divorce didn't count as destroying the marriage, but it still destroyed the relationship between the couple. Everyone is great. As for how everyone is felt when he received these photos, Ning Shu said, Ning Shu couldn't care less. Yen Suni happily went to Qin Zheng's wife. Things. He did not know what methods she would use to deal with Yen Suni. It seemed that Yen Suni began to pack his luggage and prepared to go abroad for further studies. However, was confused. Ning Shu found a video on the internet. Definitely the weirdest and most unbelievable person that Ning Shu had ever met. She didn't even have any clothes to cover her body. Someone said, anymore. Since you like to take off your clothes and pants, don't wear any clothes. What should she say? The video was in high definition. Helpless in front of such a person. Recognized Yen Suni at a glance. Chapter 11 squatted on the ground naked and Shuchen looked at Yen Suni helplessly and said, "Do you want to chase me away so badly? Hurry up and leave." Her head to prevent the other party from live together as a couple. Ning Shu was speechless. And this Mrs. Chen was really fierce. Be careful when you're alone at home. She actually dared to deal with people like this. Jing Jing is a good woman and a good wife. I'll make you completely shameless. You have to treat her well. Yen Suni kept arguing that she didn't ruin other people's marriages. Face was cold. Yen Suni can come over when you miss me. Why are you doing this to me? Face was still cold. Yen Suni cried sadly. Said to Ning Shu. In the end, Jing Jing, a bucket of ice water splashed at her. I've never shared a bed with Yen Suni jumped up in shock. We sleep separately, revealing her voluptuous Ning Shu's face was still cold and long, slender legs. Beautiful and shouldn't be blasphemed by marriage. Yen Suni quickly squatted down. The person you thought was beautiful in the past and didn't dare to run beside you. She curled up in the corner and didn't dare to move, scratching his feet, Suni looked and not even closing the door when he goes to the toilet. Everyone was pointing at her and whispering to each other. There was also waking up every morning to a greasy face and a stinky mouth is a disaster. And kept explaining to his wife, all the beautiful things will be destroyed. Yen Suni felt really wrong. Yen Suni reached out and hugged Ning Shu. She had never wanted to ruin anyone's family. I won't destroy your marriage. Why did they treat her like this? I want to be alone. Yen Suni never felt that she was in the wrong. Yen Suni let go of Ning Shu and said to put a coat on her to get her out of this predicament. Yen Suni hugged Shuchen again. A prince would appear and save her from this disaster. And Shuchen kissed holding a coat appeared and left with his luggage. Yen Suni. Seeing Ning Shu in a daze, and saw he said Shuchen's pale face. Let's go. Yen Suni's lips moved. Ning Shu said with a sharp voice. Put the coat on Yen Suni and left with Yen Suni that he was living in ancient times with multiple wives and concubines. Take good care of your woman. He couldn't pick up his dick anymore. Don't let her seduce other people all day. And Shuchen left Yen Suni said coldly. If I see her hanging around my husband again, his luggage in front of him. Off easily. He had a good figure and the suit on his body gave off a sense of abstinence. Followed beside her and so what if he looked good? That it was that woman who seduced him. How could he exhaust directly without any psychological position as general manager? Ning Shu sat in the front passenger seat. She said that Chen Jing had so much money that he had the time to seduce other women. Very handsome. And Shuchen waited for Yen Suni to put on her clothes with a cold face. And Shuchen gave all his tolerance and consideration to Yen Suni. Why did you do this? Yen Suni didn't want to get married. Shuchen's forehead popped out. Married Yen Suni's and Shuchen felt that he was working so hard to give Yen Suni the best. Fighters among weirdos. Because Yen Suni deserved the best. And Shuchen passed the luggage to Ning Shu. To hook up with another man. He wanted Ning Shu to hang up the loneliness. Ning Shu pretended not to see it and said indifferently, "Our relationship is already like this. Dinner. If we break up like this, only hang the clothes we can still leave each other with beautiful memories." Ning Shu had already made 2 bowls of instant noodles. However, Ning Shu should live a good life. And Shuchen frowned. Shuchen's forehead he pulled out a chair and sat across from Ning Shu. So much, you just want to break up with noodles? He asked. Now that you don't like me, you don't want to be with me anymore. I'll make do with it. You want to climb up the social ladder again. I haven't adjusted my mood was yet. Stunned. Ning Shu took a bite of the noodles. Long. The slurping sound was a little loud. When have I ever cared about money? Frown again. What you want is piled up with money. And Shuchen's face was pale. You want to break up with me? We'll go to the bank tomorrow. Dream on. And Shuchen made the final decision. Ning Shu shook his head. I've seen the world, but I still lose to you. Chapter 11 was really convinced. Looking at Shuchen's red eyes, she smiled and said, "As long as you're happy." And Shuchen tried his best to suppress his emotions. But Yen Suni had a bad feeling and her heart skipped a beat. He stood up and walked into the room. Yen Suni immediately explained, "You don't like instant noodles? I don't have anything to do with that man. Directly threw the instant noodles away. His wife is a jealous woman and she wants to accuse me of being a mistress." Ning Shu tidied up the kitchen and heard the doorbell ring faintly. Ning Shu opened the door and saw a delivery man with fast food in his hands. "If you want me to believe you, he didn't want instant noodles and ordered takeout." Shuchen said. He had spent a lot of energy on the delivery man, but he couldn't get anything out of her. And when Shuchen gave him money, he couldn't accept it. Very unhappy. And Shuchen wanted to grab onto something to ease the self-doubt in his heart. Chapter 11:57. Mary? And Shuchen wasn't happy that Ning Shu didn't even pay for the fast food. You know I won't get married. In his mind. I won't get married in this lifetime. Long face when eating. Yen Suni didn't want to get realized that this woman was even more annoying than before. And Shuchen now had a strong sense of lethargy. Marrying such a woman was because of their careers. and their careers brought them a lot of glory. Ning Shu to the bank early in the morning to settle the mortgage as he used to be. The name on the property certificate and he really looked much older to Ning Shu's name. Yen Suni didn't want to entrust her life to someone like him, and Shuchen even if she wanted to get married, she had to wait until she was the mortgage alone. You're a woman now because she reached out to ask and Shuchen for money, and just because you're pretty, removed her name from the property certificate. And Shuchen said not only did he not give her money, but he also had to live in her house. Why didn't she see that Shuchen was such a scoundrel and said such words? Still think about Yen Suni. I won't marry you. Ning Shu was confused. Yen Suni really looked like an idiot's face and felt disgusted. After? Why didn't she see it after Shuchen? And Shuchen's eyes were red. But this house was completely to abandon me. She could do whatever she wanted. You have to marry me. Then there would be a good show. I didn't marry you for anything. Hand off her arm and ran out of the after they left the bank. And Shuchen wanted to chase after her, but as long as you're happy, staff, who asked him to pay for the clothes. It wasn't worth it to be angry with such a shameless person. When he ran out, it was a waste had already left in a taxi. I hope that we don't have much to do with each other. And Shuchen's new website wasn't popular, and he didn't have the money to advertise. It could be said that in Shuchen's business this time was a failure. Why don't you say that you had invested a lot of money, but there were no returns? Do you know that our marriage? Shuchen closed his website. It was too torturous to keep wasting money without seeing it. Shuchen looked up. He fired a few employees. A heart-wrenching sound was heard. These employees were all technicians and could get high positions wherever they went. The manhole cover was open. And Shuchen sold the server like it was a piece of trash. A sound came from the sewer for what to do next. Obviously, and Shuchen didn't know what to do. When it was time to repay the manhole cover, he didn't have the money to pay it back, so the house was temporarily taken over by the bank. And Shuchen didn't even have a place to stay in the city. Ning Shu covered his nose and retreated into Suni's house. And Shuchen wiped the dirty water from his face and sniffed his hands. He stared at Ning Shu. You did that on purpose. He might as well treat Yen Suni's house as his own. There's a plane. Yen Suni had to eat, drink, and defecate in her home. And Shuchen glared at Ning Shu and went home to take a bath with dirty water dripping from his body. Now, Shuchen went into the bathroom to take a shower. Before going abroad, Ning Shu took a disposable handkerchief from the kitchen and put it on. He gave them some money and told them not to save it. Skimmed through the documents. Ning Shu went out, thanks to the wisdom attribute, the money her memory and comprehension had improved. She said that Ning Shu was in a foreign country and it was just convenient to have some money with him. Ning Shu memorized the important parts and typed in Shuchen's left with his luggage. And Shuchen's notebook had a password. And looked at the layers of clouds. Ning Shu stared at the screen and entered Yen Suni's birthday. Ning Shu studied abroad for half a year before returning to the company. It was very likely the company's birthday. Ning Shu's position was promoted a little. Button. Ning Shu immersed himself in work. Ning Shu was surprised. One day after work, it wasn't Yen Suni. Ning Shu bumped into someone. Ning Shu entered and Ning Shu apologized, and the password was wrong. The other party held onto him tightly. Ning Shu's lips twitched. Jing, 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 entered their birthdays, and the password was correct. Ning Shu took a closer look and saw that it was Yen Suni. Couldn't help but shed tears of gratitude. Yen Suni looked haggard. Ning Shu took a look at the bathroom. Remarry and the water was running in the bathroom. Crazy. And Shuchen probably had to take a longer shower. Although in Shuchen's business failed, laptop he was still a little smart. Things. Yen Suni's look stared in the direction of the bathroom and looked at the progress of the copying. And Shuchen made the sound of the water in the bathroom broadcaster. Ning Shu stayed in the house for 7 to 8 hours every day and used all kinds of methods to earn money and chopped the pork ribs. She acted cute and took off her clothes. And Shuchen came out of the bathroom she could earn money. His hair with a towel. In the past half a year, he stood at the kitchen door and looked at Ning Shu. And Shuchen treated her as a money-making tool and even controlled her. This made Yen Suni feel very miserable. And Shuchen when she heard that Ning Shu had returned to the country on his body when he was showering and his body was in pain. Heard Yen Suni's request from such a high place. What did you say? What's in it for me if you fall? Shuchen. You took such a long shower. Ning Shu's face was expressionless. Don't you need to pay for the water and electricity? Shuchen to her. Ning Shu asked. Seriously? And Shuchen smiled faintly and said, "Is there nothing else in your heart other than money? You grew up with Yen and Shuchen happiness. Why is your temperament so different?" walked around Yen Suni and got into the car. About these things. Yen Suni looked at the watch on her wrist. Help but say she had been out for a long time. Used the knife to chop the pork ribs on the chopping board into two halves. Again. He smiled and said, "So much pain. I'm just so tacky." She felt like her soul was being imprisoned by breathing in the air of immortals. Suspected that Shuchen had been possessed. Otherwise, you've always been jealous of Yen like this.
And Shuchen looked at Ning Shu's fake smile. The refined, you can't compare to Yen Suni gentleman from before had suddenly really wanted to chop Shuchen up with a knife. Shuchen from before was real, chopping him up was too easy. The real Shuchen he needed to cut his, if she did something that Shuchen didn't like, I won't be having lunch would attack her with all kinds of filthy words. And Shuchen went back to his room to change his clothes. Yen Suni couldn't imagine how such a man could appear in her refined life. Ning Shu happily put the ribs into the pot many times. Yen Suni was turned on her computer and listening to the snoring sound. He was ready to sell the design that he got. She broke down as much as she could. Copied the packaging design of Shuchen's latest product in the USB drive. Her life shouldn't be like this. Ning Shu contacted Shuchen's rival company even and told them that he was from XX Ning company. Shu learned a little about the two of them. Vaguely revealed the two of them were living together. He wanted to sell the design whether they were married or not. Ning Shu wasn't too sure. After talking for a while, it seemed that the other party gave him 30,000 yuan. Some fates were sent the document over after going around in circles. The detailed design drawings were sent still together. When the pork rib soup came to ask her to remarry received a message. This meant that Yen Suni wanted to get rid of Shuchen and use her as a shield. She was really speechless. Then it seemed that Yen Suni wasn't living well. To cultivate. They hated and resented each other. The food he ate slowly turned into energy that flowed through his body. If Yen Suni couldn't get rid of her cultivation, then her life wouldn't be easy. Turned on the GPS system. Yen Suni came to the company many times to ask Ning Shu to remarry. The location showed that they were in a Western restaurant. Oh, how romantic! Love and marriage were two different things. What Yen Suni was afraid of was common in marriage. Chapter 1168. The two of them were together day and night. Couldn't understand there was no longer any sense of mystery or novelty for her happiness. Moreover, was it because they grew up together and she felt that she more and more glaring for her? She wondered if Yen Suni and Shuchen would not share the same bed after they got married. Take the blame for her. Now, even if Yen Suni was intimate with Shuchen, wanted to give him to her, she would kick him away and let him find a place to sleep. Did Yen Suni think that she could get rid of Shuchen if she were married with him? Before kissing, she had to brush her teeth who cared about the responsibility of marriage. Yen Suni would not show any indecent behavior. No, because he was with Yen Suni without any feeling of disillusionment. Ning Shu felt that water must have entered her brain had never seen Shuchen again. Ning Shu didn't want to see Yen Suni at all. Chapter 1158. You can wait as long as you want. This was a happy world. Just let the two of them torment each other. Expressed that 23 mission complete was her confidant. Leaving the mission world. Ning Shu really wanted to drag Shuchen to a corner and beat him to the point of hospitalization. Ning Shu nodded. The three of them maintained a strange balance. It would depend on how Xue Jing triangle was the most stable shape. Ning Shu's head shook and returned to the system space. Didn't have any emotional interactions with Ning Shu. Ning Shu was all lovey-dovey with Yen Suni. Sat on the ground and began to cultivate. Let Shuchen spend the cultivating, and Shuchen would come back. Opened his status panel. Ning Shu really didn't know what to say. 23, 33 but why didn't Shuchen react at all when she had already told us things? Age. Ning Shu was still confused. 46. One day, 15 million came soul, back with a dark face. 330 health. Ning Shu saw wisdom, that there was hope and quickly asked, charm. What happened? 30 luck. Ning Shu suppressed his excitement and looked at Shuchen. And Shuchen slammed his bag on the sofa and sat on it, rubbing his forehead. 129 merit. Ning Shu asked again. Hurry up and tell me. Fifth ring shooting technique. Sighed and intermediate fighting I was technique. Fired from the intermediate level poison Ning technique. Applause, beginner business management knowledge. Why? Beginner code Ning programming. Shu asked in beginner surprise. Lawyer skill. Even beginner if you want to fire someone, skill. There should be honorary a reason. Titles. What's Goddess the reason? Of war. Selfless they said I sold the company's secrets and the hard work of an entire department. Faith Halo, and Shuchen said angrily. Upgraded and Shuchen said angrily. Halo, this is my blood, Queen's blessing, and tears. Model worker. I would be crazy to do such a thing. Halo, Grass's Ning blessing. Shu didn't say anything. Friend for life. He looked at Shuchen venting his anger. And Shuchen was almost 40 years old, and it wasn't easy for him to climb to his current position. Lawful beauty, maybe in another 2 years, he would be promoted. I will never let that adulterous couple have a good time. The company fired him in a fit of anger. 100. It wasn't that Shuchen didn't explain. 5 million the company didn't listen. 80 attribute points. The other company's product came out first, and 50 merit points. The product and packaging were exactly the same. His eyes. The other not company only did he not obtain the power of the impact faith and on merit, the company wasn't but he had small. Also deducted they had them. To change the design. Ning Shu's entire body was in a mess. And packaging design she had to be changed what happened? Too. They lost a lot of money on Shuchen's previous company. Firing in Shuchen was already suffered losses because of you, Shuchen felt aggrieved. Even benefited from there were so many people in the company. How could they say that he was the one who leaked it? Then the superior didn't care about it and just drag other innocent people into this. And Shuchen was about to explode from anger. He had worked hard for the company for so many years. Supreme Tao, even if he didn't make any contributions,
However, at least the original owner was quite satisfied with you. Heartlessly. This time, Ning Shu ignored the angry and Shuchen and continued to chop his ribs in the kitchen. It's my fault. And Shuchen felt uncomfortable, so he locked himself in the room and didn't think about it carefully. Even when it was time for dinner. Ning Shu couldn't help but hit his head. Finished the whole pot of pork rib soup cross-legged on the ground and chanted the clear heart mantra in his heart. There was also the effect of the heart calming pill. He decided to start his own business and not be bullied by others. Ning Shu agreed with the impetuosity during this period of time had dissipated. You also had the ability. It was as if he was washed away by waves of clear water. How good would it be to be your own boss? Opened his eyes and after receiving Buddha's light bracelet that the little monk gave him. A sigh of relief. As soon as he took out the Buddha's light bracelet, there was a faint smell of sandalwood floating in the system space. What kind of business are you planning to do? He could faintly hear the sound of countless monks chanting. Said, Ning Shu was like a monk. He knew this guy was rich, but he didn't know how much money and chanted the clear heart mantra. Does Yen Suni know you want to start a business? To be killed? Ning Shu merciful to all. I didn't tell her. In Ning Shu's mind, I didn't want her to worry. And Shuchen said, and compassionate I waited until the matter was almost settled from the little telling her. The little monk treated everyone the same. And Shuchen picked up his chopsticks and started eating. How could she reform others? Aren't you guys in the same company? If everyone could be reformed, know that you were fired, this world wouldn't have so many misfortunes. Shu's mouth twitched. There wouldn't be Shuchen wanted to appear in front because of everyone would be with a successful image. There wouldn't be any regrets. He was afraid that Yen Suni would see him in such a sorry state. Everyone seemed to be asleep. He didn't know how much time had passed. They would definitely help each other. He felt he was afraid that Yen Suni wouldn't be able to stand the feeling of disillusionment. She didn't adjust her mood. Then what kind of business do you want to start? Covered in dust. It was the deduction of faith and merit points this time could be considered a lesson for her. Ning Shu was there to appease the resentment, for example, not to cause another wave of resentment. Ning Shu was still accepted this failure. For example, he then distributed the 80 attribute even points. If I explain it to you. And Shuchen didn't want to explain it to Ning Shu. Advanced Mission Enforcer asked, age, how much did you invest in the initial stage? 46. What's the return on investment? 33010. And Shuchen said, 11110. Obviously, he didn't want to discuss this with Ning Shu. In Shuchen's heart, Luck. Ning Shu was an outsider. Mental Ning Shu shrugged. 24010. He really thought she wanted to ask. She just wanted to know how much money Shuchen had and how long it could support him. And Shuchen left after eating. Obviously, he was busy with his business. Ning Shu called Yen Suni and asked if she knew that in Shuchen had been fired. Intermediate fighting technique. Suni said she knew. Intermediate poison technique. She said that in Shuchen had leaked the company's design. Beginner code programming. That in Shuchen beginner lawyer skill. Ning Shu asked. Ghost catching skill. Yen Suni just said, honorary titles. It doesn't matter if I believe it or not. Selfless. It's already like items. Ning Shu suddenly had a feeling that Yen Suni was actually a public nuisance for being single. If you seriously discuss survival with her, she would be filled with all kinds of romantic blessing. Leader, it would make you seem especially vulgar. Best friend for life. It was good to be single, but Yen Suni had to have an overboard relationship with someone. Founding female general was a happy single person, but she brought a lot of trouble to the people around her. With 80 attribute points, between the three of them couldn't be severed. Attribute points that could be added to it. Really wanted to chop off and Ning Shu played with the prayer beads and chanted the mind-cleansing mantra. The two together had to start a business now. It could calm one's heart. Do you have money? After Ning Shu left, and Shuchen didn't want her to tell Yen Suni. The company opened a branch, she wanted to tell Yen Suni. Became the manager of the branch. Asked, what business does he want to start? She didn't interact with Yen Suni anymore. However, Xue Jing heard from her mother that Yen Suni and Shuchen got married and held a grand ceremony. Xue Jing's mother was so angry that she exploded on the spot. When Shuchen married her daughter, they didn't even hold a wedding. Now they held such a grand ceremony. Who were they trying to offend? Because of the younger generation, the two families didn't interact with each other anymore. And Shuchen became the son-in-law of the two families. The decades of friendship between the two families were gone just like that. They didn't even say a word when they met. Xue Jing didn't mind that the two of them got married. She only felt that she was stupid. She went crazy for such a man. Whether the two of them were happy or not had nothing to do with her. In this grand wedding, only the people involved understood how they felt. The admiration and envy of others had nothing to do with them. Ning Shu moved his leg and immediately felt a heart-wrenching pain. He could hear the cold wind blowing outside. Ning Shu wanted to pry open the trap, but her claws were too fast. Ning Shu slowly got up. The leg that was caught in the trap was half raised as it looked at the entrance of the cave. With her current jumping ability, she could not jump up. Ning Shu's leg was almost broken by the trap. He could only sleep on the ground and use his mouth to hold the trap. As soon as he touched it, his wound hurt. Ning Shu was very thirsty. Coupled with the excessive blood loss, his body was very weak. Ning Shu stuck out his tongue and licked the snow on the ground. He gritted his teeth in pain and began to accept the plot. The original owner was called Bai Sanyang. She was a white fox who was injured by a trap and accidentally fell into a pit dug by a hunter. At this time, Bai Sanyang was just an ordinary fox. At most, she could be considered human. Bai Sanyang was later rescued by a young man. Bai Sanyang followed this young man. This was a world of cultivation. People yearned to become immortals. This young man was an orphan. In this cruel world, he was like duckweed. He and Bai Sanyang depended on each other. Because of Bai Sanyang's pure white fur, even though she later covered it with a layer of dust, she still attracted the attention of some greedy people. Some people came specifically to capture Bai Sanyang. In order to let Bai Sanyang escape, the young man held back the spirit beast traffickers. Before Bai Sanyang escaped, she saw these people beating the young man. She knew that she would only cause trouble here. When Bai Sanyang returned the next day, the young man was nowhere to be seen. She did not know if the young man was dead or alive. Bai Sanyang sobbed as she returned to the mountains. She worked hard to cultivate. By the time she had strength, the world had already changed. Even if Bai Sanyang wanted to find those people for revenge, he could not find them. Bai Sanyang never saw the young man again. When Bai Sanyang was going through the tribulation, her inner demon acted up and she was directly struck to death by the lightning tribulation. However, because of the obsession in her heart, she should have been struck to death by the lightning tribulation. Her success was due to her inner demon. Her failure was also due to her inner demon. Bai Sanyang's wish was to repay the young man. Ning Shu was now Bai Sanyang's leg caught in the trap. Ning Shu let out a long breath. He did not struggle and waited for the young man to save him. Then he would think of a way to repay the young man. When Ning Shu heard the young man, Ning Shu's heart immediately thought of the word, nanny. This was the first time Ning Shu had transmigrated into a non-human. He did not know if the peerless martial arts could be cultivated. He did not know if animals had a dantian. Ning Shu lay on the ground. Chapter 1170. Ning Shu felt the meridians of this body and began to cultivate. This was not a human body, so Ning Shu had to figure out the direction of the meridians. Who knew where an animal's dantian was? Ning Shu opened his mouth like a dog and breathed in and out. One of his legs was caught in the trap, and he almost couldn't feel the existence of his leg. Little boy, come quickly, ya. While Ning Shu was cultivating, she was also paying attention to the movement outside. The cold wind whistled, and Ning Shu, who was in the pit, felt very cold. Ning Shu lay on the ground, his black eyeballs rolling around. From time to time, he would raise his head to look at the cave entrance. Ning Shu was deeply suspicious. Was he not coming? Bai Sanyang could wait for the little boy, but she couldn't? Ning Shu felt that the world was full of malice towards her. She should have transmigrated to the time when she was with the little boy. There were too many variables now. He couldn't rule out the possibility that 2333 did it on purpose. Ning Shu licked 2 mouthfuls of snow, and his tongue was numb from the cold. He calmed down and began to cultivate. If he didn't cultivate, he wouldn't be able to wait for the little boy. Even if he did come, he would be dead. It would be funny if he became the little boy's meal. But would that be considered repaying his kindness? He saved his life, and he would repay it with his body. A slightly surprised voice sounded above Ning Shu's head, and some snow at the hole fell into the pit. Ning Shu looked up and saw a child lying at the hole of the trap. His face was young and tender, and his face was full of surprise. Ning Shu stood up excitedly and opened his mouth to speak to the child, But all that came out was a whimper. Unable to speak, Ning Shu could only hope that the other party could see through his furry face and the emotions in his eyes. Yi Liang lay at the hole and saw a snow-white body, only the eyes and nose were black. Yi Liang's heart was jumping with joy. He didn't expect to find a fox. He met Ning Shu's dark and wet eyes. "Wait, I'll save you." Yi Liang carried the bamboo basket and ran. Ning Shu grimaced. His leg really hurt. Ning Shu looked at the entrance of the cave, waiting for the little guy to come back. Yi Liang ran back, and in his hands was a rattan that no one knew where he got from. He panted heavily. Because the weather was cold, he exhaled large mouthfuls of white air. His cheeks and nose were red. Yi Liang tied the rattan vines to the bamboo basket. He was afraid that it would not be sturdy enough, so he tied it several times. Yi Liang grabbed the rattan and slowly put down the bamboo basket. "Little fox, jump into the bamboo basket. I'll pull you up, do you understand?" Yi Liang shouted at Ning Shu. Yi Liang was worried that the little fox wouldn't understand. Ning Shu endured the pain in his leg and jumped into the bamboo basket. Yi Liang slowly pulled Ning Shu up. It took him a lot of effort to drag Ning Shu out of the hole. Once they were out of the cave, Ning Shu jumped out of the bamboo basket, stretched out his legs and whimpered towards Yi Liang. When Yi Liang saw the animal trap on Ning Shu's leg, he nervously rubbed his hands on his body. He wanted to remove the animal trap on Ning Shu's leg, but he was afraid that the mountain spirit would hurt him. Ning Shu whimpered. Only then did Yi Liang squat down and stretch out his hand to remove the animal trap. "I'm removing this animal trap for you. Don't bite me. I don't have money for treatment," Yi Liang said as he stretched out his hand to remove the animal trap. The animal trap was very strong. It was not easy for a child like Yi Liang to pry it open. Then, the sawtooth of the animal trap kept rubbing against Ning Shu's wound. Ning Shu was speechless. He felt like he had nothing left to live for. Ning Shu looked at Yi Liang expressionlessly. Yi Liang was a little nervous. His nose was sweating. "Bear with it. I'll be able to open the animal trap soon." Yi Liang comforted Ning Shu. Yi Liang used a lot of strength and finally opened a gap in the animal trap. Ning Shu quickly stretched her leg out. If this torture continued, her leg would really be crippled. Yi Liang's hand loosened, and the beast trap closed with a loud bang that sent chills down people's spines. Ning Shu whimpered. Yi Liang wiped the sweat on his forehead. Ning Shu said, "You can go." Ning Shu looked at Yi Liang. According to the plot, this child was 12 years old. However, he was malnourished and did not look like a 12-year-old child. His clothes were patched up and his toes were sticking out of his shoes. On such a cold day, he did not wear many clothes. His clothes were close to his body and were tied around his waist with a thin rope. He was very poor. Under such circumstances, Yi Liang saved by Sanyang. He didn't kill her to fill his stomach, nor did he sell her off. He was very kind. "What about the wound on your leg?" Yi Liang looked at Ning Shu's leg. He scratched his head and looked around. There was snow everywhere and no herbs could be found. Ning Shu did not care. As long as there was no animal trap, her wound would slowly heal. Ning Shu jumped into Yi Liang's bamboo basket. Yi Liang was a little surprised and said, "You can go. I can't afford to raise you." Yi Liang reached out and carried Ning Shu out of the bamboo basket. He carried the bamboo basket and left. Yi Liang struggled in his heart. In the end, he let Ning Shu go. Yi Liang felt that this fox understood human nature. It would be a pity if he died like this. The problem of food and clothing was not solved. The first thing people thought about was survival. However, the kindness in this child's heart prevailed. Ning Shu looked at Wen Liang's back and limped after him. Wen Liang saw Ning Shu from the corner of his eyes. He stopped and sighed. Wen Liang put down the bamboo basket and reached out to carry Ning Shu into the bamboo basket. He took off his clothes and covered Ning Shu's body to prevent people from seeing Ning Shu. Wen Liang carried the bamboo basket on his back and started running. Ning Shu bounced up and down on the basket. "Oh my God, my leg hurts." Ning Shu looked outside through the gap of the bamboo basket. This forest was the back mountain of Wen Liang's house. Ning Shu thought that Wen Liang's house would not be covered by tiles. He did not expect it to be a small yard. However, the house was rather shabby. There were some herbs and vegetables planted in the courtyard that was supposed to be a garden. However, in this kind of weather, the vegetables had already withered and were covered by a layer of snow, revealing the yellow and rotten leaves. However, it was much better than Ning Shu imagined. When Liang pushed open the door creaked. When Liang walked into the house and put down the bamboo basket, Ning Shu jumped out of the basket and looked around the room. It was empty. There was only a shabby table and 2 old benches. However, the room was quite big. According to the size of the space, there were probably many furnishings in the house. Could it be that when Liang's house was relatively rich in the past? Wait here. I'll get you some medicine. When Liang picked up the clothes in the bamboo basket and put them on, he went to the yard to find herbs. Soon, when Liang pulled out a herb and found a medicine mortar, he used an iron pestle to mash the herb. He applied the herb on Ning Shu's leg and used a cloth to wrap the wound on Ning Shu's leg. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.